update you. It seems to be high on our list of things to address engineering wise, and possibly in the field as well. I get the feeling possibly more, well, they've already started a repository, but as far as the contamination around the mill, that Howardsville might be the first thing that they go to work on. It's kind of where. Oh, sure. That's where it looks now. So we've created work groups within the CAG, and that was to get kind of a tighter group of people to communicate with the EPA. Hopefully to focus questions both from them, from the EPA, and from us of what we want to understand with their thinking at the Howardsville site. And it's a non-traditional process that they're trying. I applaud them for it. I think it's a way for some of the unhappiness with the EPA that comes from just not knowing what they're doing. That we can get closer connection to them and pass that information on to you. And that's the process we're working on, and that's what I'm hearing about. So I made a few notes of some things that are kind of important, I think, that you may or may not know about. And I'll phrase this in I kind of see there's technical interests and there's political interests. It's two separate things that can define what goes on out there that are out there that need to be talked about. I obviously focus on the technical side, having spent time out there, having a background that way. But I'm going to bring up a little bit of both, just so that there is an intention to do something with there's evidence of significant metals in the groundwater under the Howardsville tailings pond. They haven't shown us how that affects the river, as far as the metals that are underneath that pond. Does it get into the river? Does it load the river at 10% or 100% of what we see from Gold King? We do know a lot more about the loading that comes from the Gold King from the long history of treating water up there, but the loading that comes out of Howardsville into the river, and a lot of this relates to Mayflower, although that's not the point to be discussed right now, but there are two tailings ponds that are showing signs of contamination in the groundwater. There's a contamination plume of metals. And we Sunnyside spent time cleaning up some of that, and we felt like the groundwater in the vicinity where we removed the tailings did improve, but we didn't have evidence that it actually significantly improved anything down here. And this is by conversations I've had. I'm not here to present data and stuff. Comes out to be questions that I think they may be asked, should be asked in some cases, to research this and present data. If it's going to spend a certain amount of money, how much is it going to do? And remember, we're back to assuming that the original goal of Superfund was clean up river downstream in very general terms, and there were other two goals were to stop blowouts and to and there are three things. I can't remember two of them, but it was clean up the small sites around. So back to Howardsville. I can't tell you how bad it is, but I know that they should presented a significant zinc metals, and the plume that they show us is zinc, significant zinc in the groundwater.
They haven't drilled into that yet. Are there some monitoring?
It's a question that we've asked and haven't got clear, but I believe from their picture that they show us there's 4 holes out in the pond. So acres of pond, and there's 4 more that are on the perimeter of the southwest perimeter where Sunnyside removed the Pride of the West tailings. Sunnyside moved the tailings at the very southwest side of the Howardsville pond. They did so because they thought there would be contamination in the river from that, and it was unpermitted. It was something they could do with property owners' approval at the time. And they thought it might do some good, so we removed some of them, went back onto the Howardsville proper, and some of them went to the Mayflower. And what we're doing is cleaning up the original, the first tailings that were laid down there that were unpermitted. It was before permits were needed and such. And there's still some of those unpermitted tails under the existing Howardsville pond. that we can never touch.
One of those ponds was lined, but that liner is ripped, isn't that correct, or is not working?
To bring it, the lining, there was some work done in the 2000s that I'm not familiar with. And there was some lining done and some additional material placed there. I believe it was ore, I believe it was rock, not tails.
Well, the rock that's on the one tailings pond was pulled from across the road in that
Yeah.
tailings right
And I think that was put on a liner. As far as what P&G or Baker's Park before them, or
I don't remember on that.
Dixon Inn before them,
Sure, Dixon.
I don't think there's any liners out there, other than Larry was out there under the P&G, and they put liners only on the berms, only to create to keep erosion of the berms at bay. Not what you
keep anything
typically
going in
think,
the groundwater.
not what you typically think.
Is that right?
of a line.
Huh,
So, because you can go out there and see the liner. Now, that 2000 era, I don't know, other than that it's been pointed out that
Sure.
something on the order of a quarter of the pond there that they reworked in the 2000s has a line underneath it, not underneath the tailings, but underneath the new stuff they put on top. So whatever happens out at Harsville, the tailings are moved. Well, first I want to state that the way EPA sees it, there is tailings in groundwater contributing metals to the watershed.
I agree.
So removing or neutralizing those underwater tailings is kind of their goal. They've been, I think that's clear enough to say. They've kind of identified that the bottom foot of a 12-foot deep tailings is in the water. So it's like a very little of it's in the water, but it's the bottom. You have to move the top third to the bottom. So it's a big project if they're gonna remove the tailings.
Would they
out of
put
the
them
water.
in the repository, or would they do it in place?
And they've thrown out. It's not guaranteed that they're gonna do anything. They're still in this process, but what they're telling us, so you know that, they gave us a minimal option of just simply putting what they call a reactive barrier downstream of the tailings pond, which is just simply enough lime and stuff to react with the metals that are coming
During
in.
the pH check?
Yeah, it's a $4 million project over, I think that lasts us 10 years, and they have to do it again.
You got it, yeah.
Or they do $100 million and they take them to Bondad, which is really not on the table, even though they presented it to us, for the fact that other counties don't really want to see our tailings down there, would be one reason that they stated. Another reason is the cost of taking down there appears to be 3 times the cost of repository in place.
Why would they even suggest that when we're building a repository right here? The bond debt, that blows my mind.
Yeah. But they did, and I think to give you the best answer I can, was to say that this might be the most you would expect them to spend. It's gonna cost $100 million to take him to Bondad. So they're saying that they don't think that's the solution, and I think in saying so, they don't think they're gonna spend $100 million.
What about it's too big amount of tailings to take to the new repository, correct?
I haven't gotten into that. I don't know that that's not still something that's on the table, but likely it compromises their life of pond at the Mayflower, tailings pond 4. That'd be one thing. It is gonna compromise the long life.
It should have been considered before the project was started. You know what I mean?
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. If they
Yeah.
are gonna do it,
Yeah.
it should have been in there sooner.
Yeah.
Because at this point, to decide that's what they're gonna do with it, it totally cancels what they've got.
Let me ask you-
Totally, but 90% cancels.
The main thing is going to start off, we need the data of how many tailings we're talking about.
Okay, got
I,
that.
I was involved in the 2000s of covering that
Oh, really?
with the borrow area,
Uh-huh.
okay, and obviously. Sounds like we shouldn't have done that, but that was for the state and everything else, but I mean, we need to know the data on how much tailings they think there is.
Okay, they got
And
that.
that-
That's part of the
And that's just
report.
from 3 drill holes? They know?
I think there's total 8
Okay,
holes. I don't think it's Well, the estimates from the EPA is 300,000
Yards,
yards, not tons, yards. Sunnyside's estimate, when we were out there wondering if we would want to try to clean up the whole thing, Larry said that he thought it was 500,000. Those are just two numbers that were thrown out there.
okay, that's a lot, yeah, that's a lot.
Well, the 300,000 is, and it's in the report, the 300. Question on that 300,000 is what's the parameter you're gonna stop? As you get to the bottom, it's not like it's laying on a clean, hard surface that you're only gonna clean to that surface. It's gravel down there, it's river gravel.
There'd be infiltration.
So there'd be a certain depth, they haven't clarified that, fair enough, I'm not, you know, it's early in the thing, I'm just trying to.
No, I know.
Is right, but that's a question we have for. If you're talking about 300,000, can you show us how you're figuring that? Can you show us your parameters for how deep you're gonna go? Are you gonna do it visually? You're just gonna look and say it looks clean, or are you gonna be sampling it? Because there's two ways to go about it. And one would create a lot more material than the other, and it could turn into a fiasco of it being a lot more than they think, depending upon what their parameters are, and how well they understand it.
Has that always been the path of the animus, or was the path of the animus moved by the tailings? And the reason I'm asking that is, then you would have, if the tailings are on top of the old riverbed, then you could have Sunnyside and Gold Prince and all kinds of other tailings in that riverbed that was covered up by the other tailings.
That came down from
Yeah,
upstream.
yeah.
No, I can't answer that. There is one small plume that maybe is one hole that is outside the Howersville Tailings Pond that does show metals, elevated metals. It's an isolated thing. It's not the big picture, so I don't really know, but you're right, it could be. The river, no doubt, ran over there at some point in history, but whether it was since the 1880s when they first came here, started mining, or whether it's before.
Yeah, you wonder if
Hard to
the
say.
tailings
It is river
pushed
gravels,
over.
I can vouch for that.
Sure.
It is river gravels down under a portion of it. They seem to say it's under all of it or most all of it. I'm questioning just how well, as far as the 4 holes or 8 holes, there's 4 holes out in the big pond, which doesn't seem enough to be able to say.
Yeah.
That it's uniform 1 foot of tailings in the water. As you get towards the hillside, I would think that you're starting to come up above the water table, but the water table is gonna rise as it gets into the mountain as well. So they may be right, and they're gonna come back to us and explain why they think they know that. But 300,000 yards, and moving them in place is one of the, in situ, not in situ that they leave them right there, that's an option too, but to remove them so they can get those tailings out of the water, put a neutral material back in the groundwater thing, put a liner down, put the tailings back on top of that, and put it back like it is an option that they're talking about.
It's the lifespan.
But the main thing is, reason they're doing that is to get the tailings out of the water.
Sure.
That's the
Yeah.
justification.
And then like Scott's alluding to, you need to know the data of how long is the best liner in the world last?
Yeah, that's, I was just gonna, how long do they?
Right.
Lifespan of a liner.
Yep, good question. Yep, absolutely. So in this, they gave us a 84-page report to read through, which is a lot to read through for.
Nice.
Thing. There was more pertinent information, this is from CDM Smith, there was more pertinent information in the last 100-some page report. It was one was 700, one was 100 and some. Didn't have a lot of information, this one had some. So that they're responding, I think, a little bit, we want more real information and not boilerplate. However, there's a big 16 pages of this of a boilerplate of all the possible things you could do. And a little check mark that off the table or on the table. It's a lot to go through. I don't plan to go through it.
It makes the most sense to do it, keep it in place, because then you don't have all those transportation costs. you don't have
Absolutely.
Wear and tear on your road, all kinds of stuff.
It's not out of the question to grout the tailings in place in the water. I don't know that they've got enough information to say it's a good idea or bad idea, but it's not off the table. And it is something we brought up, because I'm just curious, because if it's a good idea, it has ramifications
So you just
well
blow-
beyond Howardsville.
You just drill a hole 15 feet down and just start pouring grout out and then just start sealing the grout out.
Up a ground, yeah. You guys have done that before, haven't you?
Well, it's the way you do a dam foundation,
Yeah.
it's, I don't know if it's been done in tailings or not, it could be, could well be, and that's what we're asking for.
No.
It's an idea that you're thinking of, where else in the country has it been done in the world?
Sure.
And it's just, we think it's legitimate questions to ask, and it's legitimate for the public to ask.
Yeah. I remember even up at the Pond One, they were talking about, at one point, talking about ground curtains, doing it that way.
Yeah, now there
Larry
could be
was talking about
ground
that.
curtains upstream
Right,
to try to divert the water there.
right.
It could be a blanket thing that injects enough grout into the
Yeah.
tailings that there's very
Pretty
little
cool
water.
technology, actually.
Huh. You know, and we've never gotten feedback back whether the Kitty Mac experiment worked. Cause
Right.
if the Kitty Mac experiment worked, they should be bringing their sludge to Howardsville and mixing it with those tailings to neutralize them, because that's all wrong.
But that's what they plan on doing on Pond 4.
Right, but you
Four.
could, if the kitty, but they never will answer, how's your sampling down below the Kitty Mac, cause they had high lead, and it's like, is there lead anymore after you guys did this project? If there's no lead, you could say, well, this was a success, why couldn't you use the same thing at, Hartsville? Cause I mean, you're just mixing lime with acidic tailings.
That's also data you need, hopefully, from the planning group or the CAG gets.
No,
That's actually a good thought, because if they were using.
Right, that's not that old.
Site For, for the sludge. And building because that material also,
makes concrete.
make
Right.
it hard. Then that leaves the repository open for
For a longer
for
period of
another.
time, yeah.
year,
Right,
because-
right. That, they should have that data from the Kitty Mac. That's only a
Well, when you ask-
project or
But
something.
when you ask them, we never get an answer. What do your wells say? below?
Okay, well, those are the things that's on the list, that's a star on my list is. The county thinks they're not getting us information and tell us you're not taking that information. Trust it show to the public, or here it is. An answer, we're looking for an answer.
Sure,
Right,
And it goes to a lot of these things, and it's kind of where this workbook, I'm gonna go back to this workbook thing. I think this is a method that might get this stuff quicker, because. There's fewer people, I can't pass this off on Peter or something like that. I'm gonna.
Oh, by having a smaller
Understand what you're
one,
asking
yeah.
for, I've gotta ask a question, and I gotta believe their answer too, so. So that's why I'm here, and that's things that
I think that's a good idea.
once you guys understand, so I think I've touched on all that,
Here's another one for
Go ahead.
you. They've sampled to find those plumes, but have they, and you said there's drill holes, were the drill holes monitoring wells to monitor the metals? Is that what they were for?
Yes.
They were just checking
yes.
the depth of the tailings.
No, they've got
They're
Monitoring
actual
wells that
monitors.
they've sampled it, I
Okay,
can't tell you the frequency, but enough that they've created a plume. The hydrologists are behind this,
Starting
they're
with
doing
tailings going out.
legitimate hydrology work.
okay.
I do think they're working on a limited number of,
I think you need more holes. That's not many holes for that big area.
it doesn't seem like it. They're gonna present why they think it is.
I mean, how many holes did Sunnyside drill? They just drill and drill and drill.
Yeah, I wish I knew more about it. I know that I keep asking about it solely because when we were out there in the 90s, there was some documentation of wells outside the tailings pond, kind of to the mill side of the tailings pond. Not at the mill, but just above where probably the west tailings where we cleaned up, where it's kind of a wetland down there. It's a pond, I don't know if you wanna call it a wetland, and we did put manure and limestone and stuff in there to kind of create it as a wetland. But there were some holes that didn't make any sense. We studied and tried to figure out, was there something here that we could understand what's going on? And we just couldn't. And I don't know that anybody's redug that data.
Sure.
I'm looking for it. So I'm happy that's what we're here is to answer your questions and say, I pick up that you're concerned about moving this all, putting on a liner, how long's that liner gonna last, how long you'll be doing it again? If you're gonna do that, how successful is the Kitty Mac in doing that? Are you gonna mix sludge with it? Now, bringing tailings from Howardsville to the Mayflower to mix with sludge is something I've heard from the Mayflower project. You know, because eventually they want a dry stack. They want to stack tailings above the grade of, you know, right now there's.
Oh, the present grade, yes,
It could be a wet,
right.
it's a wet tailings. It's built to drain and to dry out that way, but at some point they want to start building above grade. And when they start doing that, they're gonna have to have some stability to it and make some tailings and something like that.
So you'd be transporting tailings from Howardsville to there.
Yeah, except that if they're gonna do
Instead
that
of transporting,
Howardsville first.
Yeah.
It would contradict them doing that later.
I mean,
See what I'm
if
saying?
you did that, you're either gonna transport sludge from Gladstone to Howardsville, or you're gonna transport tailings from Howardsville to the
Yeah,
repository.
but I don't think the idea is to put sludge and tailings together at Howardsville.
Oh, that's my idea, if the Kitty Mac.
Okay, that hasn't been
That's
addressed.
why I asked if the Kitty Mac worked, because the
Yeah.
Kitty Mac was done in place. Then why not do the Howardsville tailings in place
In
with
place.
sludge? You keep
In
them
place.
right there without having to transport them. And you get rid of a bunch of sludge, so, because that's exactly what they do.
And then if they want to use it later, they can move it later, so they can move material around as many times as they possibly can.
Don't give them that option.
Well,
Take it.
there was even talk about that, they
That's a
said,
good
don't count your chickens as far as the Kitty Mac being done, you know, they even talked about doing all that, and then they were kind of saying, well, maybe we should move it to the repository.
You know what, I think that's where you start with the question is, what's the date on the kitty man? Let's start, you have to start there,
Yeah.
it's above Howardville,
Yeah,
it's an obvious question.
I think it was a good idea, but I don't have proof.
Well, they have talked about mixing tailings with sludge at TP4.
Okay.
Where the tailings are coming from, I don't know.
Huh.
And, it's just thrown out there, but it's not it's not the immediate disposal of sludges, because the immediate disposal of sludge. I think what they're doing out there, the $15 million they're spending building their line. There's gonna be an asphalt middle, there's a line drain pond on the south end, in the middle is gonna be asphalt to dry it out.
Right,
And then the upper end is for future, hasn't been determined, but anyway, I think they've got a pond that's gonna last for. Or a repository is gonna last for 10 or 15 years, I don't remember the number exact. It doesn't include mixing tailings in there, because that would be defeat the purpose of capacity. Cause it's all below grade, everything they're doing is below grade, you're draining the water out of the sludge. But as they build it up higher, then they're gonna have to, so. But that's a good question, and that's part of what we need to get good answers for, so you guys have that.
yeah,
Now,
sludge can't be that stable.
The two things I wanna bring before done is that. And maybe this is just me throwing out, but if they're gonna move all the tailings to get to these wet tailings. First of all, make sure that it's all wet and that there's not some of it that isn't up towards the road that isn't wet, that maybe can be left undisturbed. And the other is that if they're gonna move it, rather than move it here and put it right back to where it is. That's an option, and it might be the best option. What's the final use of that land gonna be, is the big question there.
Yeah,
And it's a question they're asking, what do we want that final use to be? Now, right now, it's private ownership. I think the EPA's responsibility is only to take care of the metals, the contamination, as they call it, that fits under their CERCLA EPA rules. So they can do that, but what happens when it's done? What is the final use of that land gonna be? And I think right now that's in private hands, what that final,
Walmart,
what's that?
Walmart? Put a Walmart there?
Walmart,
He's just-
It's good.
no.
They should-
whatever it is there's been discussion about, well, could this, it would probably take delaying the project, but could the EPA superfund process allow time for the ownership issue out there to change? And that's just out there on the table, so I think it should be out there.
We may be all gone by the time that happens.
It could be, but I'm just saying that the EPA is asking us what the community wants. And And I think that starts from my responsibility to present that to you and let you know, this is what the EPA is asking us. They want us to say. So, well, I think some of them would say for you just to leave. Some would just say just to leave and take all the tailings with you. And then some people would say do something in between. And that was the answer.
Well,
Okay, well, then,
and that's, if you wanna look at the use, if you look just upstream, it would be beautiful if the Howardsville looks just like that. Is that realistic? If you did it in place, it's not gonna happen because, I mean, you could pull some of it and do a restoration of wetlands. Now, if you hauled it all off to a repository, then you could work, then you got a big area to work as far as restoring the wetlands or something, but I don't know if that's realistic.
we're probably jumping ahead of where they're at.
Well, it needs to be.
Although also the question is, do they already know where they're at and they're just appeasing us by talking to us, but they really got a plan? I just don't know, but the point is that yes, if we got ideas, we throw them out. You're kind of leading to something that I've addressed with them. Is it possible that you would create a new repository there that would maybe move County Road? It would maybe turn, instead of a 12-foot deep tailings pond over that, all that acreage, it would turn into a 50-foot.
Just a big,
Do something like Sunny Set, a burrito pond for when they created top farm, right, pond four. And that would open up that area for use. Well, now,
restoration, yeah.
That's not something that you can see happen right now under private ownership, unless private ownership came and said that's what they wanted, right? But it is the questions they're asking us. So the question is, and I'm gonna say within a year, that we come back to them and say, maybe this cleanup hours should slow down, so that if this is something that sounds reasonable to you.
So the ownership issue that they're presenting here, they're not pursuing the same ends as they did up in Gladstone.
Well, I can't say what they're doing, and I don't even know that they'll answer us if we ask, but, they could, and it doesn't fit under EPA rules to acquire the land so that they can do with it what they want at the end of it.
But that's what they did.
But that's what they did at Gladstone, absolutely with what they did at Gladstone.
They paid that owner off so that they
Correct.
have control of the property.
They bought the property so they could have a place to put their.
And I'll stay out of trouble with our lawyer, but it's the same owner.
Yeah. And you're saying what they did up there is contradictory to what I'm saying.
No, I'm not,
Well, that they can't,
yeah,
A little bit of difference up there is there's
Yeah.
actually a lawsuit against the EPA.
Because they
Right.
have,
So this ended up as a settlement, but the EPA would just
right,
purchase the property for this amount as opposed to
this is a different
the
situation.
amount that
I guess,
they're actually being sued for. At this point, this is a different situation, but there could be legal issues in the future over that too, because of the cleanup and the cost of who's gonna pay for it and those type of things.
right,
But that's,
I agree with
who
you,
knows when that will happen.
yeah,
it's pretty tricky right there.
You're right.
That's right. The legal end of what happens out there, it just. What's my understanding of Superfund, have worked with that, is that they can go do what they need to do to clean up, what they can verify as a contamination.
Right.
They can do that, whatever that,
Then they look for.
whatever they
then
feel
look
that
for-
justification is.
Then they look for a potentially responsible party after they've done the cleanup. They can do the cleanup first.
But they're not responsible for building a building site for housing or.
No,
what-
we know that.
New tailings ponds.
EPA already told us that. Is that, remember, they said, we're not gonna be putting in wetlands and things like that. That's a whole nother project. Once, like.
Yeah.
Once the remediation's been done.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the restoration.
So that's understood, but so the point on this timing thing is that it doesn't preclude that, given enough time, something like that could happen.
Yeah,
I guess the big thing is not the Howardsville tailings, it's causing the metal loading in the river down here to be pretty high. It's not Howardsville.
yeah, I'm kind of surprised that they're, focusing on Howardsville first when they've just solved their ownership issues up at Gladstone.
Right, And their whole focus is
Their
supposed to be
whole
up there.
focus was supposed to be up there.
Correct.
And you could
So I'm just
remove.
kind of curious as
Excellent
to
point.
why they're now.
Why we're
pushing
moving on County Road
Howardville
too.
First, but asking us, well, would it be helpful if
Huh.
we delay the actions at Howardsville for the landowner situation to be resolved?
Yeah.
Well, I
It
mean,
just seems a little
but there are two big points of loading. One is Gladstone, one is the Howardsville Sunnyside Tailings Corridor. That's the two big points of contention. So you would have to eventually deal with both of them, I think.
I'm just surprised that they're dealing with this one first, you know,
Yeah.
versus.
See, as Scott, we started off with, Cement Creek and 48 sites.
Yeah.
Now look, we've gone.
The whole place.
Okay,
Well, and they already are dealing with the problem at Gladstone in a way, not the Red and Bonita, not the Mogul, they're just dealing with Gold King, but there is a lime treatment plant there. But they need a bigger, and I don't know how much capacity that lime treatment plant has. If you wanna remove 40%, you gotta pipe in all the water from those 4 mines, or you just remove all the water from Cement Creek.
I'm gonna present a couple of things from my perspective, just from engineering, is that. Perpetual water treatment is on a whole different plane than moving metals out of the water table. It's kind of two different things that the moving of tailings out of the water table should be a one-time thing, assuming the liner lasts forever.
That makes sense.
But the treatment plant, to treat things for perpetuity, which is the assumption when you're treating water to clean it up, is a much more complicated
right,
process. And I'll say that Scott's made a point that I make is that right now they are dealing with the majority of the metals that existed with what that Sunnyside was treating. Sunnyside was removing so many metals from the river. We had certain water quality down here. They treated all Cement Creek a couple winters there.
They did
They got even better.
all of Cement Creek, I remember, yeah.
So just by treating the Gold King, it's a significant improvement. And it fits somewhere in that vicinity of where Sunnyside was at with water treatment. Question is, do they need to treat everything or not?
Yeah, like,
Now, that's
that-
where
that question's been asked and not answered several times.
so again, what I'm
Yeah,
relaying to you guys is EPA
Yeah.
asking, what do you want? It's a good question. Do you want all the water treat that's coming out of Cement Creek? And I don't think it's a loaded question. That's all. Leave it at that. It's a lot. There's a lot of parts to that.
Cause 50% of the loading is natural, so are you gonna take all the natural loading out too?
Well, that's right, but asking that question is, what are you gonna be doing if you treat all the water up there? What are you trying to achieve downstream? Are you trying to achieve a standard that
Well, and my argument is.
doesn't matter how much
If you're taking such a large amount of metals out there by doing that, why are we doing all these little small projects that aren't removing anything out of the animals hardly?
why are we spending money on the small projects?
Yeah, that's one of my arguments too, is why don't you just focus
Well-
on the big project that you have the most bang for the buck for?
I don't know, those are criticisms that we've talked to them about. We're
Yeah.
never gonna get an answer on that either.
Nothing.
But legally, there is an answer for it, is because the Superfund was established, there's parameters put into the Superfund. For some reason, 40 sites instead of 2 or 3 were put into it. You guys know that, you were around.
It's an art choice.
So 40 some place sites were put into it. So now those 42 sites need to be addressed. And that doesn't mean they have to be cleaned up, it means they have to be
I
addressed.
think the 48 sites were picked because they were under such pressure to do something because of Gold King. I mean, there was just this really fast move to show the public that.
but again, like he said, it was all stressed on the Cement Creek corridor. And exactly, what has happened? I mean, you can walk I can walk into the treatment plant, I've said it before, I'm gonna say it again. And I can show you and Sarah, they can show me 2 valves that are closed, that they don't treat, coming from the Mogul, the Red Bonita.
Yeah, it should be treated.
That it's piped, it's ready to go. Remember, I've asked that question. It irritates them.
It could work.
I don't mind it.
Well, I think that's what they're asking for, so certainly one of the commissioners says they should be treating as much water up there as they can, but they
I agree.
design the infrastructure for.
I mean, we've heard some pretty wild ideas. You know, about what they could do in Howardsville. The wildest, I think, being, let's divert all the water from Cement Creek and pipe it all the way up to Howardsville and create basically a settling pond. That could be a recreational site for, you know, and reestablish some wetlands up there. And then slow the water down up there and then feed it back into the Animus. That's probably, it's not gonna happen.
Most likely not.
Most likely not. That's as likely to happen as them trucking all the tailings to pond out.
Right.
That's what does that,
But I mean, the idea of slowing river flow and reestablishing wetlands to naturally slow down sedimentation of minerals into the Animus is not a bad one.
it's not off the table with CDM Smith that's looking at all this to give in 5 years, to give the EPA
But it's,
an answer to that question.
but it's not on the table with the current land ownership situation.
It might not work with the current land ownership, obviously, yeah.
And it wasn't really even on the table with EPA. EPA was saying, we're gonna deal with the tailings. Some other method is, especially money, is gonna have to deal with the reestablishment of wetlands. They're not gonna do it.
Well, but they were the ones that proposed the diversion of Cement Creek. It wasn't anybody else, right?
I thought that was.
The EPA did propose that.
Was that an EPA thing or was that
I
somebody
think that
else?
was, I think that was local.
Okay,
The
that was
public
local.
asking,
Yeah.
somebody said did that,
That was-
somebody said did that,
Okay,
and everybody's saying,
That
well,
was, that was local idea.
that was really, that
just
was,
curious.
yeah.
But I think, you know, I mean, we're gonna be with the EPA for a long time. It's, we're not the ones pushing them to rush to get Howardsville
No,
sorted out.
I agree with that. I think
That's what I need to hear.
I just,
that's 100%.
For you too.
Yeah.
Well, the rush to get Howardville was to have access to the, natural,
the natural damages
yeah,
funding.
funding. Because until they at least have a plan up there so they know it's gonna be disturbed.
Well, I mean, that's the problem in general with restoration and remediation, you
Yeah.
know, and. You know, we're constantly trying to pivot for figuring out restoration tactics before the remediation is even proposed.
Right. And by the
Um,
time they finish that project, that money may be gone.
Oh, it's
Right.
well,
Right.
Maybe not, because they said they're gonna leave half of
they
it.
said they're gonna lose some of it and some of it could be around for a while. And it does build interest, but the bulk of that money is gonna be.
Well, I'm gonna just say that for observe this, yes. The politics of this money is interfering with the technical reasons to do stuff. Because there's money available, you just say this is the best thing to do. If that money's not available, the other money is, then that becomes what's
I
available.
agree with you.
And that's,
Yeah.
that's a,
I agree
from
with
my
you.
perspective, that's a
It's like-
problem. With the country, it's a problem with EPA, it's a problem that I hope that I can help contribute to solving with EPA and making them more. Credible in the county here with what their decisions are, and that's what I tell them. So I'm trying to help them, I'm trying to pass this information,
Yeah.
and I'm not trying to do it on my own.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree that it's not a worthy project. I think it's a great project to get fix that place. I mean, fix Howardsville. I mean, that's worthy for sure. But is it more worthy to build a better lime treatment plant and treat all 4 mines at the last thing?
But
Which that project probably should have been started 5
Exactly.
years ago.
And I will say that, you know, from our political perspective for these natural damages. Funding and monies and things that are coming down, like, we're trying to pump the brakes on the deadlines.
Yeah.
For those things, so that we can so that the EPA can. Get together and figure out their plans, you know, and we're not the ones who push them to
no,
do. things.
that's not political on our end. That was something,
That comes at us and we're trying to
yeah,
pass, we're trying to pass the, we're trying to pass the buck to the state essentially to tell them that like, we can't be expected to spend this restoration money until remediation's been at least proposed, if not completed,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
So and one of the frustrations on our part politically is that, you know, if the more questions that the EPA doesn't answer for us, the harder it makes it for us to be able to
Yep.
figure it out. And I understand that they have a lot of complicated issues to work through, but the reality is they've been here for 10 years now, and
Just about.
there's been a lot of testing.
There's
And they've spent a lot of money
And
testing.
a lot of money spent.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. There's nothing private like the last 10 years. I'm gonna say that the current. The observations that I have worked with the people right now is that they're trying to do better. They're aware of that. They're aware of
Yeah,
that.
I think
They're working with a lot
this
of
is
folks
a,
that
this is
goes
a
out.
good group.
And,
Yeah.
and that's it's a big problem with them.
And we've let the state know too, that it's not just this type of political pressure that we've been experiencing here. A lot of federal funding that's handed down to the state has had really tight deadlines for affordable housing initiatives, infrastructure money, things like that. And the state is really pushing to spend this money. It's not the federal government that's pushing the money to be spent, it's the state that's pushing to spend the money. And that's not something that's unique to Sangamon County either.
No, it's not. It's our whole system.
It's a,
Okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think that I can take away is that. There is an interest here in the county is why they're not treating more water up at Gladstone, because that makes a real difference downstream.
Immediate.
And the one answer I have to give you, because it's the same thing that Sunnyside saw, they didn't have to do what they did by treating all the water in Cedar Creek. They volunteered that. And weren't even being pressured to do it. They just saw the treatment plant that was sitting idle. And that, why don't we do that? And there was a little bit of thought that cleaning up the Eureka tailings and cleaning up the Argent things, doing some of this work, we might have made things worse for a year or two. And that's logical too.
Mhm.
So they were saying, well, if we did make some damage, if we did make things worse there, let's at least do what we can to clean it up. That's the story from 2000s when they did that. Well, and then now they're being held to that, because even before the volcano spill happened, there was being pressure to bring the water quality back up to the 2000 era. When the whole scene.
When they treated everything.
When the whole scene.
Yeah.
So that put pressure on Sunnyside and the EPA and to do that, and the question still remains, how much of that is man-caused and how much of it's natural? And it's just an unknown, and some people will say that we won't clean up all the man-made metals in the county with whatever we do.
I don't see, I'm good.
I can't argue it, I don't have any data to point to a different way, it doesn't
Right.
seem that way.
But
to me.
but if it's not a human health hazard, why are you? Okay.
Yeah, I don't think.
They keep chasing the human health into this for more funding. You not
Right.
agree with that,
Yeah.
Scott? Yeah.
To my understanding, we're done with the human health, didn't you?
Yeah, well, that,
I think-
we thought we were.
Yeah, so I haven't heard that brought up, is that still being
Okay,
brought up?
no.
It's still being brought up.
Human health.
I
I mean,
Okay, that's a question,
BLM.
what is the human
Big
health hazard?
Yeah.
Especially
I would say not so much an EPA thing.
It's more
BLM's been chasing.
BLM.
correct, and it's for funding.
Yes, for funding, politics.
We let the state, know that maybe the human health funding is well funded enough. And that other projects that actually, impact the water quality, that's what we'd really like to see funded.
Okay, well, I've actually made 6 stars here, is that, I will ask them, and I'll send you guys an email that says. What are the human health concerns existing in the county from the EPA's perspective?
Yeah.
Concise, I think, things, how long do liners last? How successful was the Kitty Mac? Why Howardsville is so first on the table now, when they just resolved the land issue, which was the reason why. The reason why the treatment plant wasn't on it, because they didn't own the land.
Right.
They kind of put their foot in their mouth, is what I'll say, but
And now they do own
they'll let the spin it, they own it.
I got one other one I'd like to add on there too, just from our road and bridge, had a discussion with them, and not to say that their concerns are or are not valid, but they brought up just the stability of those tailings ponds up there beyond Pond 4. They've done a lot of damage, a lot of drainage work. On pond 4 and things like that, are they planning on doing the same kind of drainage work on the other tailings ponds? And what kind of, since the county's potentially gonna inherit those, what kind of plans do they have for the other tailings ponds, and do they have any data, or have they done any, research on this?
I think a lot of that was done by Sunny Side anyway, as far as drainage, as far as putting in
And
ditches above the ponds and things like
they were,
that.
they were good enough at the time, but the EPA is now saying that they weren't good enough for pond 4, so are they gonna do stuff on those other tailings ponds?
I don't think
that
they're-
could become-
I don't think there's anything on the table,
Well,
but, and I've worked on all.
It's a very good question. I was clarifying why they had to redo the ditch surrounding the toe of the tailings pond 4.
Well,
Because
they
that
answered
that
that,
was
they
a-
they
that
said
was
the
a
engineers, the engineers were planning for a 100-year flood event, and that's the standard that they have now.
And it changed.
A 100-year flood event coming off the tailings, but not, because if we have a 100-year flood event, the Animus is gonna come over, wash the road out and take all that work they did out anyway. They
Yeah.
were talking about a ditch for stuff coming off, the way I understood it, stuff coming off the hill of the
The
tailings.
hillside above.
Right.
Yeah, because a 100-year flood event is gonna.
That's right, that's what the ditch is
It's gonna
for.
take it-
Right, but they had an upper ditch out of there.
It's not to deal with under your flood in the river.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And-
no, it was not to deal with the river,
I
but,
don't
but,
think so. I don't
but
think
the
we've got that.
river's gonna do it anyway.
And the road and bridge concern was really the flooding event that comes out of Boulder Gulch.
Okay, so
So,
they didn't tell you it was because there were some holes in that liner?
no,
Okay,
Oh, they weren't even gonna line it.
They probably put some hole,
Yeah.
that's.
well, there was a
Another
couple,
thing into this.
there were some utilities installed through that ditch
Right.
since the 90s, so there likely was
There you go.
a few damaged spots that could have been fixed.
yeah,
And if that was the reason they did it, then
That ditch
fixing those
point,
damages would have been the more reasonable thing to do. Having to redo the thing is kind of a mystery, because why would they have put the silt fence just above that if they were planning on rebuilding that ditch? Doesn't make a bit of sense.
yeah,
So I don't think that they have a good, clear, start to finish answer for why they put that.
okay,
If it needed 100-year flood ditch to begin with, why did they start with putting silt fence in just above it?
yeah, okay.
And then all of a sudden it became an issue, and I thought it got triggered by the fact that there'd been a couple intrusions into the line ditch that somebody started putting in.
Yeah,
But I don't know.
And that's all this line there is the ditch, the tailings pond is not lined,
yeah,
isn't that correct? They didn't line tailings pond, none of those ponds are lined, right?
No,
Yep. So the ground.
no, there's some
comes.
intermediate liners for
Every-
various reasons up higher.
And when they redid the ditch, they uncovered almost 12 foot of tailings there before they lined it, remember?
That was crazy.
Down to toe of the pond.
Yeah.
That's because there was already cows there, right? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions?
No,
No, it was getting great.
I got one other one too, have you heard any talk of them, or they talked about the silver wing at all?
No, I haven't heard anything on a silver wing.
Okay,
Not that it hasn't been discussed,
I
but
thought they
because
already did the work they were gonna
It's
do
been a
on
long-
Silver Wing, which was cleaning that ditch out and diverting it. I mean, not diverting, but cleaning the ditch
I've
out to the
been
water.
hearing that they might do a lot of other work there.
You know,
That it's a
probably
really
pulling-
contaminated, that it's one of the most contaminated sites in the county, and that they might be doing.
So Silver Wing is
Just-
not contaminated.
Just curious, if
who do you
you
hear
heard,
that? Who do you hear that from?
we can talk.
Okay,
Yeah.
But
they better rebuild a bridge.
I'm not, I'm just, it's like one of those things that like the Forest Service ranger was here, like, if you guys hear anything, I'm just bringing it up because if you heard anything, it would, but if you haven't heard anything, then.
well, the dump is in the river, so I could see them doing a North Star thing, which had no effect as far as metal loading, but it made them feel better. I could see them doing the same thing with the Silver Wing, pulling that dump out of the creek right
Out of
there.
the creek and do
Yeah.
that.
But again, prove it to me, sample here, sample there, that you have
I think
metals showing up below the Silver Wing.
that's the whole backup, is asking for data on the metals.
It's more if you start hearing a lot of things about the Silver Wing, we should probably hear about it, because it's pretty far. I'm saying it'd be a massively impactful project if it's not next.
It's it's a huge site.
It's a huge site.
I haven't heard it.
You heard it. I thought that's where you heard it from.
You probably heard from the same guy I heard about, thing up.
You may have.
I suppose they are gonna do something there.
Yeah,
Any of these sites that are on this list, they're gonna stop,
yeah,
even if.
It's not like it's not possible. Like,
yeah,
But I actually thought that they already started putting a road down the backside of, from Grouse Gulch back down to the subway. Because the bridge is gone, but I haven't been up there and I haven't.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's how they're gonna access it, but they last time we talked to them, it was.
They didn't have, the only plans they were gonna do, and they already did them, was just to clean out the drainage ditch, cause it was starting to muck up, and just make sure that the water is
Yeah.
going where it's
Yeah,
supposed
they
to.
wouldn't,
Yeah.
they wouldn't gonna do any improvement. to the-
I'll try and ask around a little bit too for people.
Yeah, I think you might have
a little
But
bit
those are
better.
questions that if you're hearing them, it's.
I think you're hearing it from the public.
Come here once in a while.
Ask
public and I want to-
Anthony.
Absolutely.
I think
Absolutely.
Anthony was a partial owner of the solar, ask Anthony.
Oh, man.
Yeah, a well-informed public is the solution to getting things done. efficiently.
Yeah,
So,
Okay,
thanks for coming in.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Yep.
Terry.
yeah.
all right, eco action climate action plan here. Are we having a presentation for them or is this just information?
Just, they did the presentation when we had the joint meeting.
Sure.
So what they want now is just for you to actually take action to adopt a resolution to approve it if you're comfortable with approving what they put together.
Sure. Do you guys have a chance to look through the San Miguel and Uray ones?
I
Same as
looked,
last year.
I looked through. I looked through this one,
Yeah,
because this seemed redundant, this one seemed redundant.
yeah.
Yeah, did you see, this is just my own opinion, but I felt like. There was lots of writing, but how much was actually getting done on the ground?
Couldn't agree with you more.
And I,
It was,
I hate to be.
when we
blunt,
went to that
I
joint
hate to be-
meeting, that was the exact presentation from the
I
year
hate to
before.
be blunt about it, but it's like, I'm seeing lots of writing and ideas and this, that,
Right,
but what was accomplished on the ground?
boots on the ground. Yeah,
And I don't wanna hurt their feelings or anything like that, but, cause I know they put a lot of time into this thing, but. What actually got that, or is this like a way of paving the way for things getting done on the ground, maybe that?
I think that's the plan. This is you adopt the plan and then move forward.
then they move forward. from
Yeah,
there.
I mean, they were doing, they were calling me and, determine how much, coal we burn.
Hmm,
So, then they could
sure,
figure out,
sure,
then they had a
What that-
base
what
number,
that
and
impact
10
is.
years later, they'll come back in and they'll see and they'll have something to make.
I mean, did they ask just us for burning coal, or did they ask everybody in town for burning coal? I mean, as far as pinpointing that.
I think they call
Yeah,
it.
no.
Yeah.
They knew that we were the major coal. burner.
Sometimes I can,
Which is ended,
Uh,
which is ended.
Yeah.
I'll say there are some actionable things in here that might get done in the next 5 years, 10 years.
Okay,
There's a couple things that the Sneffels Energy Board is working on for us and San Miguel Power more, so.
and you've been involved in that.
Yeah, and like the power redundancy and potential, micro solar grids that could power the town and benefit.
right,
Yeah,
right.
that's good
Things
stuff,
like that.
yeah.
That's good
And
stuff.
then even
That's
just,
some of the stuff-
just,
I got you.
helping people seal their buildings better and things like that.
Sure.
Those are on the ground things.
Right.
And they are referencing some of the things like the DOLA, Main Street Open for Business grants that were done for businesses in town, got solar and, energy efficiency.
There's like
and
4 of
things
those
like
or
that.
something like that.
There's like, I think there was 12, I think there were 12 total and 4 buildings in town got solar, so. Yeah, it's, they have a little bit of things in here that
I
are
gotcha.
actionable things, and some of them are just natural progressions of things, and I think that it shows on our grid, the county's becoming less reliant on coal. Based on,
But we're
the
still,
hardships of
but we're still
maintaining
relying
coal
on,
burners.
we're still relying on a fossil fuel though, because at least we're not burning coal. So-
But certain things, like when we opted to build, or when we just voted to pursue space heater, or not space heater, but electric heat in the miners hospital building versus propane. That's something that they'll come up on our next
Right, but that electricity
Next year.
could be coal generated.
I wasn't gonna bring it up, Scott, but you did. Yeah, I mean, are we really,
It could be.
is the, we're getting it from Fort Worth power plant, are we not burning coal? If we are.
Unless you do something where we say, we're willing to pay that little bit extra for, solar and wind power
A
electricity.
lot of that
A
extra.
lot, yeah,
Well, and I think that's one of the things that they're hoping with this like microgrid program
Yeah,
that they can do in solar.
that's
is
good.
that they
That's
can
good
offer,
stuff.
is that they can offer electrical
That's
prices
good stuff, yeah.
compatible with.
right,
If
Absolutely.
they're able to get that grant funded and get that on the ground, they're able to charge the same rates.
sure.
And yeah, and I think the goal is just that electrification means that we're not reliant on fossil fuels necessarily.
Yeah.
It can be generated from other sources. You can't generate propane from trees.
You guys didn't do solar on your building, did you?
We did, yeah.
You did,
Yeah.
and, this is just an aside, how did that work with, snow?
Oh, it's not great. It's not.
It just hurt.
Yeah,
Cause I've debated about doing it myself, but it's like,
It's more
it
of the
seems like a
ice.
nightmare for snow.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not great. for
Okay.
sure, and for shoveling your roof either, but.
Yeah, no, well, I'm glad you said that, yeah,
But you know, like, those are some of the actionable things that we had in here.
okay.
So like, yeah, there
So
are,
there were some actionable, but there was,
I do question, you know, so the term, what do you call it, like your footprint, your ecological footprint, you know? And now it's kind of this, trend that everybody's going back to the origins of that, you know, how did we come up with this footprint? Well, it was come up with by oil and gas companies, by BP and Exxon.
really,
To make people feel bad about their carbon footprints and not focus on the carbon footprints of BP and Exxon.
focus on their own footprint.
Yeah,
Huh.
so these climate action plans are, it's a great effort, but I mean, the reality of our ecological footprint is that industrial industrial waste and footprint is far higher than our community, you know, it's part of this is, I think they're trying to make people chase their tails of how much waste we produce for the landfill versus, you know, oil and natural gas and such. So,
Yeah, no, absolutely.
and I will probably ask these folks next time how much funding they get from BP and Exxon.
Really.
Yeah. Good question.
To present and provide these kinds of, these plans to us, because it's.
That's interesting.
I'm interested to hear their response to that, but.
Huh.
But
So you think it's possible?
I think it's more than possible. I think really likely that the grant funding that's handed out to these things could come from either from, you know, oil and gas revenues from the state or directly from these organizations and from these, you know, large industrial companies. And I shouldn't just pin it on oil and gas, there's plenty of other bad ones too. I think it's great. I just think it's sometimes we're missing the mark on, you know, and there was there was somebody in our meeting, a town board member who was saying that, you know, we really need to force all the restaurants to start composting and, you know, stop using styrofoam and get with the times and not using plastic straws and things like that. And I was just thinking to myself, man, we just have so many bigger problems. I'm so worried about them. Not to say, you know, we try to do what we can for composting and recycling at the restaurant, but it's, you know, but
We got it.
pointing the finger at the wrong people sometimes. Including ourselves. you
Well,
know,
no,
sometimes.
but there's some really big things out there that's better to look at.
Yeah.
Really quick.
Like our orange water.
It was.
Yeah.
So, Willie, do we have to okay this? What do we do with
We
this
need
thing?
to, if you wanna adopt it, you adopt it by approving resolution number 2024-04. A resolution of the San Juan County Board of Commissioners adopting the Silverton and San Juan County Action Plan.
Sure, I'll make that.
Make a motion?
Yeah,
I'll second.
okay.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Just before we move on, the one other thing I kind of wanted to point out here is it actually, at least in Salmon County, it shows if we follow our actionable plans here, on these, you know, perhaps reduction, business as usual kind of things, our graph can go down, but in San Miguel and Uribe County, it looks like even if they follow all their actionable plan, the best that they can hope for is a slight increase.
And do you know
in
why?
their- in
Do you
their
know why?
footprints.
It's population increase.
Yeah,
Right, you can do all you want, but if your population keeps increasing, your impact energy wise.
Goes up no matter what.
All this is gonna go up anyway. So
Yeah.
That's why.
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah,
And you can, extrapolate that to the entire planet, you know, it's just, you put more people on the planet, you're gonna have more of an impact. Any comments from the audience on that? Just checking.
I heard a great one the other day from somebody who spent some time in, spent some time in Salt Lake City, friend of mine who's a doctor there, and people come in and be like, oh, you know, down there by that area, it was nothing, we just used to hunt jackrabbits or whatever back in the day, and now it's nothing but houses, and you're like, oh.
Yeah.
And why do you think that is? Oh, you know, just population increase, growth. You know, Mormon area. How many grandkids you got? Oh, 25, 30. Well, there's your answer. They want your jackrabbit hunting grounds.
Yeah.
Don't shock me too hard, Dennis.
We each have a buzzer in our chair.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, okay.
I was gonna say,
Yeah,
you can see Three Springs behind out my window. And if you talk to people that were here even 20 years ago, that whole valley was nothing but wildlife and yeah.
Ranches and yeah.
Yeah, hay fields.
Artesian Valley.
That-
I don't mind. Obviously I don't mind looking at it. I think it's sort of neat, but it just goes to show, man alive, things are changing in a hurry. So.
Huge.
Yeah. All right, let's go ahead and move on to our correspondence. You want to do that, or we want to do new business here first?
No, it's too close.
Okay, let's do it. So we have Silverton San Juan Fire Authority and Rescue Authorities recommendations here for proposed amendment county land use codes regarding street width and access. It's pretty short here. Should we read it aloud here, or you want to just talk about it?
Essentially, I checked with them after I read this. It really pertains to, high density subdivisions, not
Yeah.
Right.
not like every mountain cabin should have a 60-foot wide.
That was my thing, is that I just didn't really support having 60-foot wide paved driveways everywhere in the high country.
Right,
It's not
and
happening.
it's not realistic, because by the time you get there, it's gonna be burnt down. anyway.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's for town, basically.
Yeah.
This was, I think they're more
Town.
talking about the, like the new wetlands area, or the wetlands area where that new development is gonna happen. I think that's what they're thinking about.
Yeah.
But that's all within the town grid, correct?
It's all in down.
Potentially, Howardville gets cleaned up and you have a
Put a subdivision in there.
Yeah.
30 unit subdivision up there.
Yeah, you get another coal ranch or something.
I mean, even Old Ranch.
Well, I'm just saying.
Right, no, yeah.
Wouldn't have the density for something.
Didn't mean-
like this, but
Shouldn't use names.
they just need enough room to move, get their equipment around it.
Yeah.
If they go in, and it's something,
Well, it was a great example is Missionary Ridge Fire. They had so much trouble getting to some of these houses because some roads were curved and narrow and steep, and they couldn't even get their trucks up some of the roads,
Oh, yeah.
or driveways or anything like that, because there was no zoning as far as that, so they.
and as we work with Durango Fire Protection District down in Cascade and Mill Creek, which they have service over. They are, before they'll sign off on a thing, they have to make sure that the road is wide enough and turning radius is enough, and that if built over 35 feet, they have to be able to get their ladder truck up there, so then, they need to have that space. And so, I mean, this is
Yeah.
basically for
Pertinent to that.
those subdivisions.
The south end of the county.
Yeah.
Dealing with anyway.
Do you think that, oh, sorry, go ahead, Dennis.
So we do have, we do have widths, for both right of ways and, road surfaces in our subdivisions. It's pretty detailed. Major highways, collector streets, local streets. And then I wasn't entirely sure if they were talking about right of way widths or surface of the road width. And so I agree with Will. I mean, this is just really subdivision stuff because we can't. Typically, a county claims a 60-foot right of way. I've said this before on all county roads, and you wouldn't be able to do a surface of 60 feet. You'd have to have your right of way width to allow for maintenance and such. But we have really pretty detailed guidelines in our subdivision code already. And that I really like what Willie just said in terms of, I think flexibility and bringing in the fire department or fire authority to comment on subdivisions makes a lot more sense, because it's just hard to be cookie cutter. You don't know if it's going to be a mountainous subdivision or something more city-like or urban-like, and just my 2 cents. I think you can do the same thing right now by, taking recommendations of the fire department and making conditions such as listen to recommendations. Now, they might look at our land use code and say, well, it's already spelled out in there. We only have to have this wide or this wide. But I think we have some flexibility in shifting that around under unusual circumstances. But a 60-foot wide road in an actual surface 60 feet wide, that's a huge road.
Did you see this photo, Dennis, with the fire trucks laid out here? And they said, sometimes it's common for them to have 2 fire trucks side by side working, and then they've got, say each truck needs basically 14 feet to each side, so 28 feet-ish on here. And then they got the nice drone shot where they got the 2 fire trucks, and it says 58 feet on the bottom there. That's just out here on the tarmac, on the pan in front of the fire station. So
I did see that. The other thought there was, again, it just depends on where the subdivision is going to be in the county and everything else. And then keep in mind, is that going to be a subdivision road, or is it going to be a dedicated road to the county? Because if it's a dedicated road to the county, now all of a sudden you've got maintenance issues. It's not just 60 feet surface. Now you've got to have at least 10 on a side to move snow and all that. So now all of a sudden you've got a 80-foot wide road. I mean, so I just think maybe just to flesh it out a little bit and be more specific on where you would do that, and would it be a county maintained road that we would have to do that, because but that's just a lot of right of way. I'm not even sure 10 foot on the side is enough to move snow up here, is it?
not really, no.
So
Pass it down.
a lot to think about, and I think you guys already have some flexibility there, and I always love doing what the fire departments want to do, because it's directly impacting safety, and that's great. I just want it to be practical, and I wouldn't want you to hem us in too much to the point where it would be a little bit hard to comply with, or a lot hard to comply with in all actuality. But
Yeah, and after chewing through it for a little bit, it'd probably be nice to have Gilbert. He doesn't need to come in for anything special, but I like the suggestion a whole lot of having the fire authority comment on proposed subdivision requirements. And I think where this is coming from us was that recent planning application that came through. For the property up on the hillside there, where they wanted to. They didn't wanna have sidewalks, they didn't wanna have lighting, they wanted to have basically a 1-lane road servicing like 14 residents up there, and we were like, wow, that's a hard sell.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think this was done primarily for the town, and I think they
Yeah.
thought as long as they were doing the town, they might as well.
Yep,
Yeah,
exactly.
And-
The county as well.
and it's great information for what their kind of operating capacities are and what's the most useful for them to be able to.
Yeah.
Respond and adequately defend structures.
Well, we just reviewed a mountain subdivision in the other county, and trust me, it's apples to oranges compared to what you guys do. But what I would also say is that you've got emergency vehicles coming in, and you have to have plenty of room for egress. You know, so if you've got people evacuating, you've got to have enough room to let them get around the fire trucks and get out of there. Especially if you had a structure fire in the middle of winter or something like that. You know, there's definitely a lot of good reasons to make sure the roads are wide enough. Egress and ingress while there's emergency vehicles is just one of them.
All right, well, I think any other comments on that, guys? All right. I think we can move on to our next issue for correspondence here, which is Katie Shapiro's letter on dust control. And I know that we're gonna put another here, but yeah, concerns for dust control down in Anvil subdivision. Which is a tough scenario. Do you know, Mark, Katie's gonna listen to the town as well?
I believe so, she's kind of submitted to anybody
Okay.
reasonable.
Just now that the town has taken over annexation of that property, it becomes a lot more of a town issue, not that we're shirking our responsibility to contribute to dust control issues down there. And certainly, now we have a functioning water truck. I've seen it being used in town. But still,
The town did receive a copy of this.
okay,
Yeah.
Email, I checked with Gloria, and also we received a correction. That, you know, when she talks about the Zanoni property, it was actually the Shane property that.
yeah, further down,
Yeah.
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 I mean,
But that does make sense if there's any contractor, especially with those big areas, that's making dust, should be watering them down.
correct, yeah,
And that's TRC in a whole different ballgame down there.
I will mention, hopefully, even though this is a brownfield site with elevated levels of heavy metals, I believe a lot of that has been mitigated. As far as heavy metals, I mean, a lot of that smelter stuff, dust, slag has been scraped off and put in a repository, so I'm hoping that there are not elevated levels of heavy metals. I think that was the whole purpose of scraping a couple feet of land.
and
I believe
And
it,
they test.
we did address that, but when it was the counties.
And and it's, you know, you scrape, you test, you find some, you scrape down, I know the county, like at Anvil Mountain, scraped down till there weren't any, as far as I know, no heavy metals. I mean, they scraped it to bare bones until they got just the regular mineral levels, not that there aren't metal levels in that river gravels naturally. I'm sure there's a bunch, but as far as that being a health hazard, I'm not as worried about that, just because I think a lot of that has been mitigated. But the dust can definitely be a problem, so, and I think at a construction site for sure, though, I think this is my own opinion, we're being a little hypocritical saying you guys should be doing dust when we need to be doing dust on our own roads.
yeah,
It's bad out there right now.
I mean, I would hope that, I mean, the town's been doing mag chloride in town here, they done mag work on the road something?
We did, but it's, or they did on roads, but I think it's greater.
It's more the construction sites.
Yeah, it's, well, the construction sites and that, they've let TRC know to put more water there, sites talk to them. And then the Anvil area, it's just a greater conversation of like, you know, I was required by these guys to build within 2 years. And nobody else has been forced to build that owns the lots on market rate, including the lot next to me that was sold to somebody that lives out of town. And we were building in Anvil with a requirement to sell a house in Anvil. We had to sell to somebody that was a Silverton resident. And the lot next to me is owned by somebody that would live here with no plans to develop. So either you kind of tell people that they shouldn't be building houses, or we come up with a plan as a community down there to greenify, bring in trees, bring in grass. But I know the guy next to me gave me, he doesn't live here. He's not planning on building anytime soon.
I know on the market rate, so we could sell to somebody other than local, but they had to rent it to.
It either had to be a
That
primary
was the
residence,
two.
or they had to rent it.
No, that was the two parameters in that one.
And like I said, I was told that once I bought my property, I had 2 years to build. And there's people that have had those properties for longer than me that don't have.
And we haven't, you know, because of COVID and various other things, we backed off on it, but we're probably gonna have to jump on it.
And that's just the fact I wanna mention, what I think is a
Well,
great
it's a
plan
good- it's a
is
good
like,
point.
hey, since it was scraped down, you put it in a burrito. Now, Brian Fulmer managed a sprinkler system for a couple years, that's completely broken down, nobody manages watering that burrito or managing that. And now it's up to the town to decide how we can change that brownfield site into having at least a tree down there.
I agree.
There was actually, because of the material in there. The state only wanted us to sprinkle it for 3 years until we got it established. They didn't want the water to continue because that would leach the minerals down into the ground, or the heavy metals down into the groundwater.
I didn't think of that aspect, okay. Cause it's all concentrated under the burrito,
But that doesn't mean that we can't plant
can't plant.
trees or other green.
Right.
greenhouses.
So it's the-
Or at least as the plans that I understand are to increase some low income housing, maybe put another apartment building there. That just needs to be monitored better to actually water down the soil, because now you're scraping up what is arguably remediated, but like, what do we know, you know?
Well, I can show you all the test results.
Yeah,
That's what we
this,
know.
this was taken care of way before you guys were in there. We
Right,
had to go
and I think we're
through
getting
strict,
feedback from other people in town, I don't need to throw them on the bus that there are still elevated bid bugs. So, whether or not that's true, whether I gotta do my own testing, that's fine.
Okay.
What we did was, as we dug, we tested.
Just where you're.
As we dug, we tested samples. When we got to the level where they met the state requirements, that's when we stopped digging. Sometimes we were down 20 feet, even below what would be a foundation or a basement, because that's what we agreed to. And then we would bring in material that tested clean, and as we filled and backfilled, we would test that. So,
test and then come back all the way up.
yeah.
That
So
is
they-
definitely.
That was part of the whole Brownsville thing, is they made us do it, that
It's,
that way correctly.
that's documented, we couldn't.
is documented,
it's-
yeah,
We could have used that as a residential site unless
and
you do those tests and prove that.
correct, and actually MSI was watching it over,
Well, it wasn't MSI, it was Marcy, but that.
Marcy in a different capacity,
That was for,
right.
SWCA
right,
was a technical.
they were there the whole time,
And they
while we were
were
there.
actually under another firm, yeah.
So
And then it was all reviewed by this CDPHE and signed off on.
So
There you go.
we had a discussion with Ann Chase from the town too, just about like park space and open space, greenifying down there too. And they have plans documented for doing some more open space things down there as well, and trying to greenify the area down there, because.
Would be good, that'd be good.
That was a topic, was that 2 meetings ago, I think, when Ann was here, and we were talking about it, and she had plans, and she said next time she was gonna come talk to us, she was gonna show us what they had documented for that. There's a lot of children down there, and so I think having the parks so that kids don't have to go travel so far to other parks and expose themselves to other, risks down there.
And I think we had in the newspaper, the options for the Zanoni property that they're considering. And all of those had open space, components built in for play areas
Yeah.
and stuff, so, yeah, so.
And yeah, what Willie was saying too, just about like both the building sites over there too, we can get there, but with. Nobody anticipated how much building costs were gonna increase and interest rates were gonna increase over COVID. And so we didn't wanna force people to have to build on their sites, and a lot of people. Were given a lot of grace, who are there now.
And
Because technically from the time that the property was, I mean, those properties could have been all sold far earlier. But people were delaying signing their contract to buy in order to be able to come up with a plan to build there.
quite honestly, we have a limited number of contractors in town. And so the idea was kind of if we could build a couple of units down there a year was ideal, as opposed to expecting to build 15 units 1 year down there, because that's.
You can't do it.
Ain't gonna
Not
happen.
when the contractors are out 2 years right now.
And
But-
yeah, I mean, it's.
But certainly now we don't have COVID to use as an excuse anymore, and so if, how many lots have been developed down there? Eight now, I think, or 9?
Somewhere in that area, I
No, I'm familiar with what's going on with Brian getting the middle stuff going.
Yeah.
I guess my concern was that, I guess I operated under COVID and a lack of building contractors. And I got it done because I followed the rules, and, like I said, the guy met me last year next to me, and he's like, oh yeah, I might build a house someday. And that's fine, he's a property owner, but like, we were all under the understanding there are gonna be so much residents down there, so. I think the greater issue is not that, I understand you guys remediated, I understand there's building concerns and ways, but. Maybe since the town, maybe there's a way to come up with an idea that, maybe there's a grant to increase foliage down there, maybe there's a way to make it, some way we can actually walk to town someday instead of walking under the power lines next to D6s. Someday, but,
That battle's been fought and from Tri-State long time ago, my friend.
for a sidewalk to town.
No, so that Tri-State hold the move.
Oh, no, I'm
It's
not
not
interested in
happening.
both of them, I'm interested in being able
Okay.
to walk to town, not in the middle of the street, but, someday.
All right, then.
Yeah, and I
Can you
think,
guys hear me?
Yeah.
yeah, we can hear
Yeah.
you.
Yay, okay, I just got the baby down. I'm sorry to interrupt. Can I just chime in while I have a moment? I don't know how much time I have.
Yeah.
Just want to say thanks so much for even putting it on the agenda. That was quite the quick turnaround. And I think the thing that's tricky right now that's making the situation more complicated is that this was a project that the county started and now the town has taken jurisdiction over. So when I've reached out to certain people in the town, it's like, well, the way it was developed by the county, there's a certain right of way that doesn't allow for example, like planting trees along this street or whatever. So it's like this, well, the county did it this way, and so like we have to figure out now how to like kind of backtrack. And in a way, it's just like this, not like finger pointing, but it just kind of feels like we're in limbo and in no man's land a little bit. And I think that the main point here is, yes, about the remediation and the digging, and I've gotten the soil report and the methodology and all the things, but like, it's still like the burrito, for example, it's just right there. And I've had some people who have done their own like soil testing, and their levels have fallen within the residential range, but they're still elevated as compared to like town. And as having like a 5-month-old now, I'm just feeling like a couple of things. Like, one, yes, excavation when because it's not marked, like here they dug 5 feet, and here they dug 20 feet, and here they dug 60 feet. Excavation happening, they're just digging. And I don't know how deep that site was cleared. And especially down the road where there's just so much dust being picked up. I mean, it's crazy. And I just think that that is not, I just don't think that that's healthy air quality. And second point is just, it's kind of like, I mean, Mark and I signed up to live here. This is affordable housing. This is what we could afford. But if you think about like what you love about Silverton, and if you think about like things that make us happy here, a lot of that's missing down here. And I don't want affordable housing. I'm sorry.
Haven't
I'm
really heard
emotional
that.
right
Yeah, I'm
now.
not-
Yeah,
I-
Katie, you're really kind of like muffled a little bit.
Sorry. Sorry. Can you hear me now?
No,
Not
Okay.
so
maybe it's like
we can follow about 50%. That's better.
there.
I don't know how to make it better. Sorry, I'm muffled.
I mean, I can say one thing, Willie, you had those test results from way back when. You could probably compile them and provide them to these guys.
I mean, is
Right.
there somebody else that is actually doing testing that is showing elevated levels of metals, or is this just hearsay? I mean, prove to me that there's elevated levels, which is possible. I'm not saying there isn't, but you have to prove to me by a good sampling program to show that there's elevated levels. We went to great means, I'm not gonna say we, but that project went to great means to make sure that there were no elevated levels of metals. All those elevated levels of metals are under the burrito.
And that's why the burrito
And
was
it's
capped and
capped,
everything else.
yeah.
And it's since become a nice sound barrier for 550.
I just want to say that as somebody who was on the town board, when we talked about annexation, it just kept getting pushed and pushed by these hearsay folks who had no data to back up or prove that there were elevated metals down there, and it prevented the county to annex the property down there
I
for
mean, the city,
by the city for many years without any proof. And so if there are people who are saying that there are elevated metals down there, the county has a lot of testing and a lot of data to back up and to prove the safety of the soil down there. And at the town level, the town had a responsibility before annexing, or now currently, to examine that independently if they wanted to, and never did.
And quite honestly, and you're certainly welcome to read that as well, but, you know, when we had the site tested, and come up with a remediation plan, basically, it was kind of like if you ate a spoonful of dust of dirt every day for 30 years, you know, then it may be harmful to you. It wasn't like it was, you know, radioactive or something that just.
More of an arsenic thing.
Yeah, it was, no, it was, you know, you really, I mean, you had to actually consume a tablespoon a day for 30 years before they had any adverse impact. Yeah, I mean, if we missed something or if something got, I mean, well, that's, you know, one of the things we tried to be real careful about was any cross contamination, because, you know, there was adjacent property there that didn't clean up, but, so, you know, we had plans as far as, you know, when we hauled material back and forth, but we weren't contaminating the residential sites.
but then town and Shane and on the Zanoni property, wasn't that all scraped and put in another repository or not?
No, I can tell you, what's the outfit's name? Not CDW, but a different outfit came, Tetra Tech. Okay, on the Zanoni property, tested there heavily just this year.
So it was all tested
It
still,
was tested by Tetra Tech,
okay,
so.
that's what I just wanted to make sure that they didn't just develop the property without.
No, that's just the Zanoni property.
And and a lot of the work that they're doing now, they're hauling in new material that's clean material too, for building the roads and things like that. If there's anything you guys think we can do to support or help dust control down on those properties, we can certainly try, but it's not our.
And the, you know, the roads have different standards than the residential property itself, and the open space has different. Standards, you know,
Yeah.
it's based on exposure, so if,
Right.
you know, if you're living on the property, that has to be the cleanest.
Mark, you're right about that being that's a weird road. I mean, you got telephone poles right in the middle of
Right
the
in the
road,
middle of
the road going on.
And all the road equipment
It's,
does not.
it's an additional ask to being part of a community, but, you know. like-
No, but I mean, eventually you would ask for just a regular road with sidewalks. I mean, as development comes out, I mean, that makes sense to me that there would be at least a road with a path. I think that's, especially with the amount of people that are living out there now. Maybe it wasn't foreseen at first when the infrastructure was put in, but it is a need now. There's a lot of people living out there. It would be nice to have park space and a side path to town.
Yeah.
You guys are trying to push a baby stroller into town,
And-
probably. I mean, I see that.
And the road around there isn't as wide as I think it could be and should be, especially if they add more buildings there. Nobody's had anywhere to park. We have setbacks for parking in front of the house, but the road would need to be wider. There's need to be more parking to actually put people down there.
Sure. That road is definitely a kind of a weird setup.
I think pathways in general in this town are, it's, you know, the budget of our town is very, very, very limited. Our town doesn't have money in the coffers to fix sidewalks on paved roads. I mean, I put my own sidewalks in with my own money, you know, so if we live in a town, that's one of the greatest things about this town is that, you know, yeah, we don't have a lot of money, but we don't have a lot of people here either, and we have a lot of nature, and so it's like, we can't like live in the most beautiful, harmonious place and then expect to have all of the amenities built and put for us when the budget in our town is not even
It's only
a third.
so many
of
people you
the-
can take money for.
Exactly, people that live here, you know, so it's a hard ask to. Yeah, you want a sidewalk, put one in. You know what I mean? I'm just saying, like,
Sure.
it's gonna be a long time until our town has enough money to.
And I put soil and grass around my house, but I would hope that there's some way to increase that within the developments. Yeah, topsoil. Yeah. Dust control.
And yeah, now can you hear me?
It's easier than topsoil.
Can't find topsoil. That's one of the problems.
Yeah.
Good as gold here.
Yeah,
It is.
unfortunately.
I still didn't get to hear from Katie. Was there?
Can you
Oh,
hear me
here.
now?
Now we can
Yeah.
hear you really well.
Okay.
I hate
Sorry
to
about
make you
that.
Do your presentation again, but we muffled, Katie.
I'm gonna be really concise. So thanks, Scott, for giving me
Yeah.
one more chance. I realize this isn't your jurisdiction anymore. I wanted to be inclusive and just kind of come together as one giant community because the baton was just passed from county to town on Anvil. And so any additional support or just your influence in the community, working with the town, I just thought this was a smart way to go. And I'm really just concerned about, as was stated in the email, the dust from the excavation and construction. I have gotten a copy of the soil report. I've seen that the levels are within regulation. The thing that's tricky about the excavation, though, is that it's not like it's marked. Like this was the site that was cleaned 5 feet deep, and this was the site that was cleaned 10 feet deep. When people are excavating, they're just excavating. And so I think there is some risk involved in where we live. And I'm okay with that as long as we take some measures to ensure just like better air quality and health of all residents of Silverton. And I think the other way to just help mitigate the dust is to greenify. And I think that was kind of the point Mark was trying to make about these empty lots, is that it's just like less ability to just create like a little community down here that has the things that we love about Silverton. Like okay, no sidewalk, I don't care. But why do we live in Silverton? We love nature. And it is a bit of a wasteland down here. I don't feel like I can plant any food. I just think in terms of quality of life and in terms of just dust control, we know that green can help with both of those things. So I appreciate you lending an ear and just kind of letting it simmer. And I appreciate the efforts of the affordable housing. I know the intention of people who made this happen is like, so Mark and I can own a home. And I would just ask that like we can kind of align affordable housing with some just like quality of life as well.
No, I think that's a great idea. I like the idea of if the town's building affordable housing, there is a park space like right in the middle of it,
Yeah.
or something like that. I mean, I personally think we should have been leaving as much of the Elephant Hills as a park as we possibly could. That's just my own opinion, but it is a great park, but,
You know, the other problem is I do feel for you on this, guys, if you remember, the Fair Creek is it is what it is. But like you said, if you brought in enough topsoil on top of that, you could grow something. But, you know, that Fair Creek, that's part of the burrito problem. We did everything we could to try to get something to grow up there. Remember how hard it was?
it was just the soil. You can't
It's the
grow in
soil.
that soil. You have to put
It's the
topsoil.
soil, but you do have to there is a remedy. You can bring topsoil in and you can grow
But you
stuff.
gotta
Yeah,
find
but
it.
just topsoil, it's the additives and
Right.
everything else, I mean, you know, if you remember, Brian had
Keep on
6 different plots down there.
to see which would work.
Doing testing just to see what will grow.
And water.
Right.
The other,
You gotta have water.
I still feel like we'd have a much better looking tailings ponds if Sunnyside would just water the dang things. If you look at Idaro's tailings ponds, they water them, they have grass this deep on them, but Sunnyside did not water theirs. And I think they could have much better results. I am heartened sometimes walking on the tailings ponds though, because, nature's doing its own thing. Willows are coming up in
Yeah,
spots.
trees.
Aspen groves, there's all kinds of
Yeah.
little trees just, that were not planted, they're just showing up.
Fireweed seems to get great on the burrito.
Anywhere that's disturbed is
Yeah.
where you'll see fireweed, right, definitely.
But
Mark brought up a good question about these market rate lots that aren't having anything done, what are we gonna do about it? I think now's the time to ask them to start doing something with them. I mean, that was the intention.
I agree, and you know, I think certain people were, you know, signed up on the list and basically asked to give their lots back so that other people could afford to be able to buy and build a house.
I agree, if you're not gonna build on it, then let's
That's
get
a
that
valid
lot
point.
back and get it to somebody who is gonna build something,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah,
So
but
I
yeah,
wouldn't mind seeing some pressure in that respect, I think that's a good point.
I think for sure we can start to tell people, hey, it's been time. We've given you everything that we could. Now we'd really
But
like
even
to see
then,
help in
if
the
you
next
got
few years or
somebody-
turn it over.
If you got somebody, it's still 2 years down the road, because you're not gonna get a contractor for 2 years unless you do it yourself. That's just,
It's hard. I mean, I think those people need to come before this board and present their reasons for why they can't build within 2 years. On an individual
I think that's
basis.
fair, I mean, we supposedly require that in the county, though I can think of a couple places that have been built on for the last 15 years,
Decades.
and they're still not done.
Yeah.
But I'm not mentioning any names, Dennis.
Right, but now is this, let me ask you guys a question, because it is annexed now. Do they need to come before us and we talk
No,
about,
it's
still county
it's our-
property. Still county.
it's our property.
Okay.
It's the-
just making sure on that,
So it is.
so we're not trying to pass the buck,
That's our
I'm just,
responsibility.
okay. Good enough,
I think it'd be a good agenda item for us soon to have just have a you know, report of how many houses were built down there, how many haven't been built. You know, make an actionable agenda item to be able to, you know, mail out these folks and say, hey.
and I know who exactly he's talking about, we're even talking about on the corner, I won't say a name, but he lives in the apartments. right? And we started doing their, you remember the guy? And blasted everything, right? And nothing happened. There's a case.
We didn't, I'd have to look at the map again, we didn't plan for any green in between the lots, did we? Are there, I think it was
No,
just, we're trying to maximize what
We
we
were trying to
could.
maximize the number of lots.
Is, do you still wanna do that, or should we leave 4 lots for green? Or something
Well,
like that?
you've got, I mean.
There's green all around.
Yeah,
as far
I mean,
as
you got
Elk and
half
Hills.
of, half
With
of.
green behind you.
Is actually undeveloped. Because.
Right, up on the hill there,
Yeah.
and stuff like that, and I kind of personally like to see that. As much of that left alone anyway, to leave that as kind of a green belt. Personally. Save this for a later discussion.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think. And we can review the map too again and see if there's, kind of areas that we can take and do some things, and I do think that there's some.
Can we,
There's some things that are some of our funding from both affordable housing and even our visitor enhancement money that could. That could be used towards greening efforts too, towards landscape.
in the immediate, can we
Or
ask
at least xeriscape.
for the contractors that are working down there to be watering some of the, and even just, they're using that road that goes to Ample Apartments, could we ask them to water the road plus the construction site, can we ask for that?
Pretty much all we have going on in there right now is just Brian Anderson, one foundation, it's pretty. I mean, right now he's not doing any digging of anything.
Yeah, I think the excavation is all done for that
Yeah.
project, so.
So, yeah, it's pretty minimal inside Andover, so
But-
once we start with, if the town gets. The funding and this, startup with the, multifamily units, then it'll be a little bit more.
And we can certainly ask the people building in the gaps of the market rate lots to do dust control when they build as well.
But we could, I had to talk to John Sykes the other day about TRC, and that's, they have a water truck.
They did use it
Well,
last year.
they
were
did.
using a lot of
I
it.
haven't seen it this year used at all, right? Mark?
Yeah, right, and my understanding is that John talked to them and that it wasn't a coincidence that just today they were going up and down the road at least more, like.
Oh, okay, so,
And he
Okay,
said, yeah,
good.
like, we're trying to keep an eye on that, because they've done minimal.
right,
And
right.
they use that road, they're destroying that road, I understand they gotta fix that eventually, but.
Yeah.
They're starting to do more, more.
I think it's,
Right, for too, you guys are contending, there's times a backhoe or a loader's on that road, the same time you are,
All the time.
I've seen it. I've seen it.
Every single day.
exactly, so.
and it's, I think this is the conversation that came up at the town board meeting, which was like the debate between like trying to advocate for like a density so that you have more people who can have housing here. And then the balance between that and kind of what you guys were just talking about was just like green space. And I thought the town did a really nice job brainstorming and visioning the Zanoni lots, because they were kind of finding this like balance between like having some trees and a little green space and I don't know, somewhere you can walk your dog, but then having a bunch of duplexes and like finding that balance. And I just think that like we're just missing some of that in this zone.
I think in the lower flat zone, yeah, but I do think that there are other areas too, the boxcar area. Is a nice quiet space that's pretty green in the Elephant Hills in that area where the kind of trail system. Exists kind of like right on the other side of it in that whole area, and we can certainly talk about building trail systems through those hill systems and making that more accessible for residents there. But I think kind of part of the vision too is that with lots being dense together, that residents would be able to develop their own kind of green around their properties as well within the setbacks. 'Cause there isn't a lot other than road space. And we can certainly look at where, like on the end caps of places and near the apartment buildings and things like that, our potential ability to improve landscaping. But we can't go and redivide, lots at this point.
No,
especially
not at all.
Annexation.
Not at all. But there's still lots of rock. There's still plenty of space with all the housing that's being built, I think. And I think it's just like more of a, like philosophical question. Of course, it's up to the landowners to provide some greening I think. And I also think developing a new neighborhood in a brownfield site to me seems like there's also a place for some, just like the Zanoni lots where it's taxpayer dollars that are going into those decisions. I just feel like there could be some improvements made down here in the whatever the donut burrito area with funds if they're available from the county or the town as well. And I don't know, I think it can just take some ingenuity and some problem solving. Like, I think this is like what makes communities great, is just like, I don't know, people are doing all kinds of stuff down here. Emma has grass. Jordan just planted an evergreen. Like, people are really trying to figure things out, but I think like a little bit of support can go a long way too.
And we saw that on the burrito, which nothing would grow on it, but then Brian Fulmer, did these 6 test plots on the burrito trying to figure out what would work best, and they did find some things that worked pretty well. But it wouldn't hurt to plant a tree or two.
Yeah, we'll let you guys know when we have our next discussion. About that down there, and we'll try and discuss some of these things, both the property building issues and greenery down there.
Thank you.
All right, yeah. Is there anything else? Okay, let's see here. We have our San Juan County Technology Accessibility Plan.
I put something in your packet that Kim put together, but in the meantime, thanks to Dennis, I found a sample of a much more detailed, better plan that I have in front of you tonight. And basically, we've talked about this a little bit at a couple of previous meetings. What we have to do is bring our technology, our website, we have to make it accessible so people, if they have disabilities, can access our site and find out information and that type of stuff. And originally it was supposed to be completed by July 1st of this year. The state passed or amended the legislation to give us an additional year. And I think people are sort of starting to figure out what this is about. It's still pretty complicated. I
think you hit it on the nose now. What the heck does this mean? Digital accessibility.
Yeah, it means, so if somebody is blind or hard of, is visually impaired or, can't hear, they have technology to be able to access the web and have it translate. What we have to do is make sure that our website
Has that?
It's compatible.
provides the information in a manner so that they can receive it.
Is this an unfunded mandate?
Oh, yeah.
Just curious.
Yeah.
Really, do you mind?
And our IT guy to come in and present something to us, right?
With that.
We need our IT guy to come in and present something
Yeah,
to us, right?
Our IT department.
Yeah.
What kind of?
Well, not department, you know what I'm talking about.
What
I
kind of,
thought that guy, I met him here.
Okay,
Okay, he's outsourced,
well,
He's an independent contractor.
Dr. Joel, our IT person,
okay?
will fix my laptop or
Oh, all right.
connection or stuff. I talked to
So-
him the other day about this and it's like, he had no clue.
Okay.
I mean,
he understood.
Then what do we do? Then what do we do?
Yeah,
What do we do on this?
I was confused when I.
I don't get this,
So
yeah.
I'll admit, so.
Yeah.
If he doesn't know. I
So do we
know
have-
I sure don't.
Dennis would probably explain it a whole lot better
Wow.
than I can.
What's to be done?
Let me try to explain this better for you, and it's very complicated. I've gone to a webinar with the state, attended a webinar with the state. I went to training at the last Colorado County Attorneys Conference. I'll tell you what, it is, the question was, is this an unfunded mandate? Probably the biggest one we've ever seen. It is going to change the landscape of how we do business with computers in the counties. And so there's a couple different aspects to this. We did get a year extension. However, very specifically, starting July 1, we have to have a plan this year, July 1, of how we are going to transition over to the ADA accessibility. And so that's what Willie's presenting you today. It's the interim plan on how we expect to transition this year to fully compliant by July 1 of next year. And fully compliant is interesting because there's all sorts of debate on what you're supposed to be doing. So you have the public-facing electronic documents. This applies to all electronic documents and electronic access, websites, any kind of, it goes as far as to say electronic signage. But for us, we're going to focus on website first and foremost. So I'm not going to have time to talk about everything with you, but essentially what you have to do is first and foremost, you have to make sure that all your websites are accessible compliant, which means that these the technology that allows, for example, blind people to have something read to them, it has to be in a certain format for their readers to hear it. And so first and foremost, we have to try to do our best to make that happen. Secondly, we have to have an accessibility policy smack dab on our website. And Willie's ready to go with that. And that basically says, hey, we're trying our best. We're committed to making this fully accessible to everyone. If you cannot access something, please let us know right away, and we will try to remedy the situation. And oh, by the way, if you want personal service for access, call this number and we will literally take care of it for you. So that's sort of phase one. Along with that, there is a little widget, they call it, an accessibility widget that we can put on our website, and it will also check documents on our website to make sure our website is accessible. And so Willie has information on that. And then, so that's the beginning. The second phase is
I'm overwhelming there.
all the documents that generate electronically, resolutions, frankly, memos, if the attorney writes memos, all those documents that we are created electronically, and then all documents that are utilized on a regular basis by the county have to be converted over to accessible documents. So you have the big the big software providers already building this into their software. So Adobe is already building it in, Word is already building it in. So I picture this almost like the way viruses were treated, 20 years ago, where you had built in, you had the software companies building in protections. You have that same thing now. Just as an aside, I know you don't find this interesting, but this is sort of interesting. As an aside, this was all coming down the pike already because the federal government had mandated ADA compliance by, I believe, 2016, which would have made these all federal requirements in 2016. With some exemptions, we would have got some leeway because we were a small county. Colorado decided, you know what, that's not good enough. We're going to get ahead of this. So they came out with this accessibility, which is basically jumping ahead of the ADA requirement by a couple of years. The problem with that is the software companies weren't really ready for that. And this is what I've been told. Software companies weren't ready for that. They were gearing up for the ADA compliance in 16. But then when the legislation and Polis jumped in and said, oh, you know, we'll show you, we'll do this quicker, it really threw everybody for a loop. And this is a huge, huge issue. Every county in the state is running around. San Miguel had someone working full time on this for a year and a half, starting a year and a half ago, and very expensive, updating computers, all that. So it's something that. What's that?
As the state, I mean, I understand some of the logic, but to force small counties to do this with expensive software is a prohibitive cost.
I even want to back up from there. You're telling me right now that they've been working on it a year and a half. I don't hear that the technology or the software is out there.
Well, it is because if you have a new version of Word, I don't know what you guys use, but I have Word.
Right.
I'm on Windows 365, so I always have the latest version of everything. They've already jumped on it, and Word already has sort of this accessibility tab and Word. So they're working on it really. It's almost ready. And then Adobe is a little bit behind, but if you pay attention to recent Adobes, they also have the accessibility feature as well. So,
but that doesn't necessarily mean that we can Adobe and Word doesn't mean that we're going to have it for our website, right?
So the website's different. And then what's really interesting is we've got SIPA. Our website is through SIPA, which is actually the state operated tech system. And so you'd think they'd step up and just take care of it for us. But they have not been very helpful. It's very strange. So what I'm telling you is Willie is taking the correct steps to get our accessibility tab on the website so people can see that we're trying. Get the widget on the website to show that we're also making things more accessible by having this little widget thing that people can click on. Giving a contact if people can't get access, and then presenting to you guys a plan for how we are going to become compliant fully in the county over the next year. So that's what he's asking you to do now. This is not the last time you will hear of this. And the bad news is if we're not making progress in our compliance, we can get sued. If we are not compliant in July, on July 1 of 2025, we can get sued. And if we get sued, there's automatic liquidated damages. It's, I think, I forget, 3,300 plus attorney's fees automatically. So everyone is expecting a flood of litigation against counties and the state. Probably not starting this year, but definitely starting next year. I talked to someone, told me that, I can't remember what state it is, but they put something into effect this year, and there was almost like immediately 400 lawsuits filed, and that was like within the first month.
That's a.
You know, Dennis, that sounds like a scam. I mean,
That sounds like a scam.
we're basically being told by the state, we gotta spend about $100,000, to make sure don't get 10 lawsuits. I can't even stand the sound of that. Sorry.
100 grand, you guys, but I hope the software companies just transition over. But this applies to all the websites. This applies to when we do some of the tricky stuff is when we contract with someone, we have to make sure that their documents are accessible. When we post something on our website, for example, land use applications, right now we've got a huge land use application on our website. I looked at that. I started looking at that today, Austin, after we talked. That thing's giant. I don't know if that's accessible. I doubt it is. And then to complicate things, there's hardship exemptions that you can claim hardship. But the crazy thing is, no one is here to give you the exemption. You have to actually be standing in front of a judge sued, and then you argue that you're entitled to a hardship exemption for various reasons. So it's a very messy thing. But, you know, I think Willie is taking the appropriate steps for now. And I've said this before, we're going to, hopefully we're going to be ahead of the curve here. Hopefully if lawsuits are filed, they go after the state. Because I can tell you right now, the state is not compliant. The state, think about all of state.
We have to be.
Okay. The state's not, but we gotta be.
Think about all of the all the state agencies, all the state websites, all of the state online presence. All that has to be ADA accessible as well. And then they haven't even thought about certain things like, you know, if they're having agency hearings, for example, how are they going to make sure that documents that are filed for an agency hearing is ADA accessible for somebody that wants to read them? So you're going to be hearing a lot about this. Hopefully not in our county. Hopefully you'll be hearing a lot about it in other places. But these are just solid first steps, and no one knows how extensive this craziness is really going to be. But it was going to happen anyway, you guys, and it was just accelerated by the state and Polis. And I wish they wouldn't have done that. I wish they would have just waited for the ADA mandates to to take effect in 16, but I'm sorry, in 26, but here we are.
Willie, do we have somebody in mind to help us with this? Do you have anybody in mind at all to help us with this? I appreciate the work you're doing. Greatly, but I'm
this is so far over my head.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
There are, and this is how the way the town is dealing with it, there are some firms out there, that's what they do.
They're probably the ones who wanted this law passed.
They have a lobbyist.
They're the ones with their partner firms and the lawsuits.
I mean, I think the widget that Dennis is talking about, is gonna be a real help, but it's gonna have it's gonna have an annual cost to it.
I hate to hear the bottom line on
You
this.
gotta buy the software for 20,000 and pay $2,000 a year.
Other than, if I had hair, it would be turning grayer. And yeah, I mean, I don't know what we're gonna end up, if we're gonna have to end up getting bigger computers or more powerful computers to hold all the capacity of all these maps and plans and stuff for that part, the hardware part, I don't know.
That's the thing that I had questions of, is how much of this has to be, accessible in terms of like the documents that aren't just text. You know, I mean, arguably my senses are pretty good and I can barely find what I need in the
Yeah.
clerk's
I
office.
can barely navigate Facebook.
If we
Yeah.
don't have, I mean, this is, some communities are talking about an option, is just pulling the plug on their website. They're just gonna go dark.
But that wouldn't get away from it, would it, Dennis?
For
Or
that
would?
part, there's
Oh, okay.
there's another part to this on top of it. Is not only does the public have to be able to access this information, but if, as an employee, as I get older and my hearing goes and my eyesight goes, I need to be able to see every document and hear every conversation with anybody within the organization as well. So if I get emails or stuff posted or voice messages, I've got to be able to,
You're gonna be big brother.
yeah, I've got to be able to handle all those as well. So,
We're looking at, one of the things people are concerned with is assessors' websites, treasurers' websites, treasurer auction sites, you know, all of these, and they're all vendors from other parts of the country that don't even have this mandate. So, for example, our other county got a letter. I think it was the treasurer's office that got a letter that said our websites. This is the vendor we use. Our website is going to be going dark because we're not compliant. And, you know, so I think they've fixed that now. But the other thing is, for example, mapping. The mapping realistically is going to you're going to be able to have to point to a map, and then that map verbally tells you what you're pointing at. So, you know,
What's the cost on that?
I'm telling you guys, this is
Oh,
I wasn't joking. I think it is the biggest unfunded mandate we've seen.
process,
And how much is it truly gonna be used?
yeah.
I sat in, and
Scam.
I don't want to be insensitive here either, because, you know, this is a good cause to make sure that everyone that needs access and needs assistance gets it. But it's coming with a big price. I sat in on the webinar put on by the state, and one of the things they were talking about was, this is just how extensive they're talking. If you have an electronic sign, like an electronic billboard that you might have in front of your county building that talks about, oh, commissioner meeting scheduled for next month, or you know, bike race coming on March 15th, blah, blah, blah. Okay? You're thinking, all right, well, that's fine. No, they're talking about having to add a USB port to that electronic billboard so that someone can walk up to it, plug into it, and then have something read what the sign says to them.
How many people are actually gonna do that with our sign here on the courthouse? Nobody.
Oh, and I'm listening to this going, oh my goodness. I mean, so any electronic media that we have has to be accessible. And then there are some hardship exceptions, like if it interferes with how you do business. And I think that's going to get fleshed out a little bit once counties and the state get sued, and the courts tell us how they're going to enforce some of this stuff. But, you know, to me, the other interesting thing is when the ADA kicks in 2026, now we're going to have federal claims and state claims. And then the other interesting thing is you don't even have to be here. So you could be an attorney in Massachusetts with a hearing impaired client sitting on a computer trying to access websites all over Colorado, Oh, here's one. Boom. I can't access it. Are they gonna send form letters out? Your website is inaccessible. Please send me damages or what. So very interesting. We're waiting to see how this all shakes out. My hope is that it sort of blows over, but no one thinks that's the case. Everyone thinks this is going to be an attorney's dream. Sound fun? We
Do we
good?
need to take any action on this county accessibility plan right now?
Yeah, you probably, well. I don't know, Dennis, do they need to take any formal action or just allow me to post it as the? Do
I
they
don't-
approve formally?
Create the revised version yet, or are you working on it?
No, well, they really haven't had a chance to look at it, but I've got them completed.
Okay.
Uh,
What I would suggest is, because I would like a good, clean record, I would like a resolution, please, that says the move to allow Willie to take necessary steps to finalize our accessibility plan going forward, to post our accessibility policy and contact information on our website, and to allow Willie to set up the widget on our website.
I'll make that motion. Pete,
That formal,
Yeah,
That's a formal motion.
I just made it.
I have a hard time with this one. I'll second it.
All in favor?
I don't think we have much choice.
You don't.
That's why I have a hard time.
The state's gotta come up with some kind of thing, like some kind of grant
Yeah.
program that can help counties to fulfill this. This is just totally ridiculous.
It'd be nice if our
I'm-
state hosted
I'm-
website would lead the charge.
Right.
Yes, yeah, I mean,
I'll tell you something that's going to make you mad. Madder, maybe. I was told by our IT guy in the other county that he was looking for grant funding, and the state actually had funding available for state agencies to utilize for compliance, but not us. And then
like that sounds like grounds for a lawsuit.
Exactly.
so the other thing. If you look at the IT stuff that I sent over, he did mention that there was he was going after some grant funding for some compliance stuff. But I think we move forward. We have a good presence on the website that we're trying. We have a policy in place to become compliant, but this might be expensive. You might have to update computers, update software, and yeah. And I'll tell you, the other hard thing right now is IT people are, man alive. They are in such demand right now. It's hard to find any IT people that will jump on any issues right now, especially dealing with this.
Great.
So we got that going for us.
So, sorry.
Yeah,
All right.
That's enough of that.
I just gotta keep it zipped.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I was like, I think,
I got a hard time.
what else do we need to do? Okay.
Well, like Willie says, we don't have a choice, right?
Yeah.
And what I would strongly suggest is, Willie, I want a good solid record of progress moving forward with full compliance. The current statute with the extension in it actually requires us to update our efforts every quarter. So I think if you at least put this on the agenda every quarter for an update on where we are in our compliance, I think that'll show a good, solid, consistent effort moving forward. Can we do that?
We can do that.
Okay.
And thanks, Dennis, for what you do, because
Yeah.
this is,
what
this is,
about-
I'm gonna call this off the charts,
How
so,
about night-
thank you.
How many times, you know, a month do you have to pick your jaw back up off the floor when you hear about these kinds of things?
Oh, this one was a crazy one, and honestly, you know, it's taken a little lightly by some, and I'm lucky because I have an IT guy over in the other county who was tasked with doing this, and with some input from me, and then Dolores County was, I asked them if we could share his efforts with you guys, and so that's what we did.
Nice, thank you.
Again,
Yeah.
thank you.
Oh, no problem.
All right.
I've got an early morning tomorrow, guys. I'm sorry. Do you mind if I hop off before you? Dates?
We're down to public comment and commissioner and staff report, so I think you're good, Dennis.
Thank you, guys. Have a
Yeah, thank you.
See you, Dennis.
Good night,
Good
Dennis.
night.
Hey, you know, I no one noticed, but I did shave my beard, and the
We did notice.
reason I did that is because Scott, you know, thought I was somebody else there last meeting who had a beard, so I figured I'd help him out.
That's okay. If Scott ever shaves his mustache, we don't know who he is either.
What?
You guys.
I don't wanna scare my granddaughter.
Public comment?
All right, if there's any members of the public who would like to comment on anything, please go ahead and do so now. Seeing no comment, we'll close public comment, move on to commissioner and staff reports. You guys have any?
Yeah, I didn't have any meetings, but I did have a concerned citizen come to me, so I went to check it out. I went out to look at the ditch out by Jack Clark's, and that's, almost like a damn bomb went off out there. So I did talk to, I know who brought it to other people's attention, so I talked to her.
There you go.
About that process, and then I did call John Kaminsky and ask, is there remediation that BLM, because it is, even though it's county right away, it's not all county right, some of it's going, those ditches go out into the, I'm sure BLM, and that's essentially John's comment. He says, I would just appreciate it if the county is gonna do anything adjacent to our land, especially in a wetlands, that we consult and try to work together to come up with a solution. Now, I know,
I can see that.
and I know that was a low spot in the road and there were puddles, so, could we have brought the grade of the road up? Could we have done something different? The way it was done was wrong. Amazingly, Corps of Engineers is aware of it, but they haven't said anything yet. They had talked about trying to look at it, but that was in the middle of the winter or something like that, so, that could still be hanging over our head possibly. I think we should be proactive. I think we should talk to BLM and Corps of Engineers. I don't think they're gonna go after us, but we just say, we had a problem with our road that we needed a remedy. How best could we do this while least affecting the wetlands? Cause we affected the wetlands in a huge way. So I would like to see us be proactive, with either BLM, Corps, or both entities. John was saying, because this happened on BLM land, but it could be a core issue. He's caught right in the middle of it, which he didn't want to be.
He asked us very nicely to let him know about any potential issues that are recurring issues that we have on the roads or any issues that we've had. And I personally have had at least 3 different discussions with our road and bridge department. That before they go. Tearing things up, they need to make a phone call.
So I think it's a really good idea that. Because we have had a couple incidents and we don't want any more. And it's just a simple phone call to a government agency saying, look, we've got a problem.
And I've asked for the
Yeah.
list of the recurring ones too,
Yeah.
the ones that are
Right,
there.
and how can we've got a thing that consistently washes out, or we consistently have deep water when a culvert plugs up there.
Yep.
Because, and I looked at the culvert, on this side of the road, here's the culvert and it goes into the wetlands, they're on the same level, so the ditch was, I think, put in.
At the time, Scott, you're looking at it 4 months after it happened, though. Okay,
Where there wasn't water.
Right.
Yeah, I see what you're
Correct.
saying,
So-
yeah.
it was, but I agree. Let's just go with the phone call and do protocol.
But again,
Let's have a different protocol.
it was more.
I'm not fighting. I'm just
Yeah.
have a different
It was more
protocol.
than just some puddles.
Yeah,
the road
they were
was-
losing the
The
road.
road was like.
Gotcha.
They were
So
leaving the road. Yeah.
that's the information I didn't
Right,
have,
right.
is that it's like.
What, like I said,
The county had
I-
to do something because there was,
Right.
it's like the flooding out in Eureka,
Right.
they had to do something.
right, but a simple phone call protocol, way easier, yeah. What I don't appreciate is that concerned citizen, which will be nameless, immediately calls the Army Corps to the highest person every time. I'm just saying what I'm saying,
But.
and you know it as well as I do.
But a citizen has a right to be concerned about.
Absolutely.
Anything like that, I believe that myself.
I just think if we were able to get the phone call to John Kaminsky.
Let's do the phone call now.
Then.
Let's
if-
simplify
If we're able to get the phone call to John Kaminsky. And we can work from the middle back down. instead of-
Right, so what, we have a problem.
We don't
we
need,
know
we don't
we
need to
could-
do this every
Yeah.
time.
No.
We have a problem, we know it could cause a problem if we try to do something, what's your idea?
What's your suggestion?
And bring the core in or something like that. Now,
I think that from our road and bridges perspective a little bit, some of these things are emergencies.
And that won't work.
And so we don't have time to.
But
Which
I
I-
still
have
think,
meetings
I
and-
still think even they can make a phone call to one of us, we can make a phone call,
The phone calls.
right? We could help.
The phone chain, we could help.
so I
Yeah.
didn't realize that Lou is starting to lose some of the road there
Yeah.
now. The one I saw was the one out in Eureka, when the animals came over and started taking the road, and they're just desperately trying to fill some in.
Right.
You gotta do it, you're not even gonna have time to make a phone call, we can.
Right.
If we're notified something's happening, we can call.
But the one incident, you could have made a phone call.
Yeah,
Yeah.
on this.
I agree with you.
I think there's always the time to make a phone call. I
Yeah.
think they
And they can make a phone call,
They carry-
even if they can't
carry
make the phone
GPS
call,
things and they could send a location and an SOS.
and we can make that phone call.
Somebody can go out there and check and make that phone call for them.
So,
I agree with
this
that.
area is, it's pretty torn up, is that the final solution, what was done, or is could we? Cause I asked John, do you have an idea for any kind of remediation? There isn't one, so, personally, is that a done deal, or can we make it look better while we still keep our road in place? I guess that's what I'm asking now. Should we be asking, BLM or Corps, is there something different we can do to
We can always ask.
preserve well, I think it's a good idea just to show we're willing to cooperate.
Right.
Is there something we can do to preserve our road, but maybe mitigate some of this? And it wouldn't take much to mitigate it. If they say you gotta mitigate, you pull your dirt back, but then are you stuck right back with the same problem you had? I don't know. So, and you're a road, I mean, you're familiar with
Yeah.
roads and drainage and things like that. I don't
Yeah.
know.
No, we can make, I think we go back, let's go back. There's not a fight here. Let's make a phone call. Let's try to,
I think before we get a phone call from the Corps, I think maybe we say,
well,
what do you think? What do you guys?
she
think
acts
about
pretty
that?
fast, so sometimes it's pretty tough. But yeah, hopefully we can.
But I mean, not even, what I'm saying, do we make a call to the Corps right now on this issue?
I mean,
I don't know about
I
that.
haven't put eyes on what you guys are talking about.
We
so
could do a field
right
trip.
now. I
Yeah,
don't really know that much about
it wouldn't hurt to
conditions or anything like that,
be
maybe.
proactive about it.
Maybe Pete has some suggestions for how to,
Yeah,
I know how to make the road.
I just don't
better.
know how to-
It's-
And that was totally out of my expertise when I was standing there. I could see that water coming in here, going out this way, it's at a perfect level, so at high water, it's gonna come right up over the roads, and I don't have any idea what a solution is. I go, well, maybe a bigger culvert, but you're still dealing with the same level of water.
We can, we can always ask them.
Yeah.
Doesn't
Well,
hurt. I got a
I think.
rapport with them, and
Yeah,
we can
I
ask
think
them.
before we, and definitely in the future, before we do anything, we'd say just,
Who do you deal with, Pete?
It used to be Kara, now it's Kara's replacement.
it's a guy
a
down,
different guy.
one guy below.
Yeah, it's, I have his phone number.
Trying to think of
It starts with a T, and I can't.
Yeah, I'm right.
I have the phone number. You wanna call
No, no.
him? Yeah,
Not right now.
yeah, I got it. I got plenty of people who's making that phone call, yeah. And I don't mind it at all.
So,
Fine.
do you think that's worth it before they call us? Or not?
You think they're gonna call us?
I don't,
I think it depends.
I mean, they're-
There's a solution.
they are
I
aware.
think they may have already contacted us.
Okay.
Okay.
Have
I'm
we-
not sure.
All
have
right.
we-
I'm
have
gonna-
we- have
I
we-
mean, there
I gotta close
was,
my mouth on this
I
one.
mean, at least from Lisa, there was Tucker.
Tucker.
That it, Tucker?
Tucker Freeman.
Had contacted, basically had contacted the county to ask what they did and to send some photographs, but it was kind of in the middle of winter when it happened.
Yeah,
Well, I think it's always a good thing to respond
Yeah,
absolutely.
before.
I don't see a problem with
Because if you respond, because every one of those agencies has a right to fine you, correct, or not
yeah,
necessarily?
no,
And if you, it's like EPA, if you as a property owner, like, it is costing, right, but if you cooperate with them, there's a better chance you're not gonna become a potentially responsible party or something like that.
Yeah.
So, I just, I don't know. I just went out there and I go, that was a lot of damage, but I also gotta look at it from Road and Bridge's standpoint, we're having potential damage to our road and we had to solve it, so, but.
I just think some communication, especially if we can.
Better communication.
Directly
Always
with
better,
John Kaminsky about these issues as they come up.
Absolutely.
We could save ourselves a lot.
I agree.
So after the fact.
Instead of after the fact. And John asked very nicely for us to do that, and I have relayed that on to County Road and Bridge personally a few
Good.
times, and
We'll continue to do it.
we can hope that improves.
We'll make it improve.
Okay.
Yeah, we will make
We'll
it.
make it improve.
Um,
yeah, there will be language in the job description that.
Correct. That's how we can do it right there.
Yeah, I mean, that's
That's a
a
good-
very good.
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
no, I agree there.
We're already
I
talking
think
about better
there's a lot-
communication.
We've already talked about that, rewriting some, like having a once a month meeting with our road and bridge, head of the road and bridge, something like that, so.
Yep.
Can I change the subject?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're just going on
um,
commissioner and staff reports. Go
How
for it.
come our water truck isn't being used on the roads? Do we just not have an employee to run it
They actually had it out the other day.
out on the county roads?
Yeah.
Oh, they did, okay.
And Louis was, he was concerned that, it was gonna take forever to.
Fill it up.
Fill it up, he said
It's got enough,
it fills up real quick.
what's suction,
Nice.
what's that called, Pete, suction capacity?
Yep.
What, is that what it's called?
I,
I don't know.
I'll leave it alone.
All right, I did talk to Rusty Melcher, he said Stony Pass is open.
Yeah.
As of yesterday.
Yeah.
They'll have a washout
And
there.
they got the cat fixed, and he said, then I had to park more than a minute, and the marmots were trying to get back up in it, he says they're everywhere.
Yeah.
Just,
Yeah,
so.
I don't know what to necessarily do about that, other than, trying to come up with.
I went online and they said, peppermint oil and cayenne pepper spray it on.
You've done it
stuff.
all.
No, you said you've
Yeah,
done
we've done it
Irish
all.
Spring, people have done.
nothing
mothballs.
works currently with them.
I leave a bag flapping on the bumper, so they think there's something alive under my car.
Yeah.
I don't know.
There's creative things, Rusty told me that same story, so that they were gonna try and order this thing that has a,
Right,
it's
sonic
a
emitter.
beacon thing
Makes
that
a
makes that
beacon thing.
sound.
Makes a loud noise.
Right.
when something
Makes
They
comes
said
along.
they're not expensive, they're only $50.
Yeah,
They look good them on
It's
everything,
worth
yeah,
trying.
you're right, I forgot about that.
But I tried the deer whistles on my car, and then I creamed one at 60 miles an hour down in Hermosa, so they didn't work, but
Right.
it's still worth the try.
But worth a try, they're only $50, yeah.
It's a cheap experiment, so.
Maybe
But
instead
that
of,
was good to-
portable electric fences. I don't know. I don't know.
Landmines, little landmines about that big.
Cayenne landmines.
Oprah Pass is not open, right? But,
The upper end of it is not.
there's a big drift there, and I was just showing pictures of guys trying to get through that drift and sliding off the road and having to be winched out with a 100-foot winch. They're still gonna try it,
But it's not to know that the other side isn't
It's
even attempting on top of doing
like-
anything.
Like from the top of the.
So you're not gonna
cliffside.
you're gonna get from here to maybe parts of the top, and that
These
top
guys-
never gonna be
These
open.
guys have gotten at least 150 feet down, and it's like,
You can't fix stupid.
and that guy, and he
There's
was,
no sign.
they were doing this,
No,
you
there's
know,
no-
It's a good one.
yeah, cause I saw the tracks, and I thought they were just trying to punch through, but I remember that whole section of road always has a big old drift on it.
And you're not, once you get up top, you're not going anywhere. And they're
Well,
not
if you
doing
did,
it.
you're gonna,
Die.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Louis thought that San Miguel was gonna be coming up this week or next week. And
Right.
Probably, I think they were gonna try to get up there before the 4th and. that
And then
probably
then we
went
go up,
and
yeah.
up.
I did have buddies on Imogene Pass about 30 years ago. Put their dirt bikes on their sides and slide them down the snow for like 200 feet to get back to dirt. I mean, it was dirt here, snow here, and they were able to slide their bikes kind of going downhill. They just put them on there. Yeah, no.
Without punching through it?
It was, you know, how hard the snow is. They just put them on there. It's like dragging a mule down, you know, that's.
Might as well put a tarp underneath
I've
it.
had similar experiences, and you always find the soft spot. You're trying to
Yeah,
slide.
and then
through it.
you're shoveling it out.
Going over the handlebars, straight onto your back, front flipping over.
What was it that Jack Monroe said about taking mules through the snow? He says, I would just throw them on their sides and pull them down by their ears. They seem to have no objection to that.
Yeah, right.
The trailer is supposed to be in.
Any minute.
The trailer, Art, the one, I was thinking of the modular home.
Well,
The
I
one
feel
for
like
the-
Fabio got back online, I think I know he wanted to ask me if he could haul the trailer.
If you could haul the trailer into the,
Yeah, I mean, I told him not to, I said, don't haul it onto the site until
Till we
the
say,
commissioners are taking action.
yeah,
So he probably, I mean, he popped back on for a minute, that was probably what he wanted to ask.
it would be nice to get the trailer for the cat though.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the reasons they didn't.
That's not where, that's a reason we're not going with Volvo. It's the same company. Power equipment company out of Grand Junction.
Took us, what, 2 years to get the trailer?
There you go. So why would we wanna buy a Volvo from them?
Because it takes 2
Okay.
years to get delivered, so.
Well, not 2 years delivered,
I know.
parts and service, non-existent.
I told Louis to tell him that, because I mean, the good thing was that we didn't have to go down any deposit or pay or anything. I said, we'll just let them know that we'll pay them.
About the same time they deliver it.
Want to pay them as it took them.
Exactly.
to deliver to us,
Get
Yeah.
it delivered to us.
yeah. I think he told them over a month ago to cancel the order if they want to deliver it.
That is all I had, by the way.
Okay.
I'm gonna wait till the next meeting. I had a AAA meeting that was quite involved. They still haven't got a director, but, there's some discussion on the grow domes. And it's almost as irritating as what we heard from the state, but it might be, the next meeting, it might be rectified, so I wanna report some good news, positive news to you after my next meeting, okay?
Okay.
I have something, but I'm gonna wait till we're adjourned,
Okay.
because the
Don't say-
lawyers taught me.
Yeah.
Don't say anymore.
Yep,
Yeah, I think I'm good, so.
okay. We adjourn.
But if we can adjourn this meeting at 9:36 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you,
your
guys.
patience tonight. It's been a long
No,
meeting,
thank-
to be here since 5.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for bringing the pizza, thank goodness.
Yeah,